Hello everyone and welcome to Learn Symfony for the full course for beginners. This full course will take you through how you can install Symfony and use it. We're going to explain the different components that make Symfony a framework and how they interact with each other. First, let's start by explaining what's a framework and why you should use one. A framework is basically just a set of tools that help you start making an app in a very quick way and without having to deal with every single detail yourself. An example would be security. If you don't use a framework, you will have to make sure that you prevent the smallest risk by writing the necessary code and understanding the different aspects of that risk. But without a framework, but with a framework, most of the basics, the basic and well-known threats will be handled out of the box, which lets you focus on the actual stuff that matters, which is writing the actual application code and logic for your application. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you can use many of the applications that does many of the tools that already does something without the need to write it yourself. Now, Symfony is a framework, but why should I use Symfony? Now, Symfony is a PHP framework that is made and maintained by Sensio Labs. It's been around for more than a decade, and it's been used by many large organizations and companies, and they still do to this date. Now, why you should use Symfony is up to you, but here are some things that I love about Symfony. Now, the first thing, which is the most important thing for me, is the community. That's the most lovable thing about open source, and the Symfony community is just extremely huge and full of helpful people that would help not just understand the concepts, but sometimes even aid you with your own applications and your own code. Symfony has a Slack workspace where you can join and ask or answer questions. The core Symfony developers could be found sometimes hanging around there in case you wanted to ask them something specific about the framework or even discuss some patterns or some code. But the community itself is extremely helpful. The second thing, which is the thing that I fear the most about open source, is no longer maintained in abandoned packages. I hate when I start using some tool or a framework and the developers just decide to move on with their lives and ask no one to take care of that or maintain that package anymore. But that's not the case with Symfony. It's maintained extensively and gets updated frequently, and you can even have a glimpse of what's coming up by going through some of the pull requests on GitHub. Now, if you don't know what GitHub is or a pull request is, that's not a Symfony thing. You don't have to worry about that. The third thing that I love about, which is something specific to Symfony 4, is that some people used to say that before Symfony was used for large applications and you cannot use it for like small applications or even medium applications. That's not the case anymore. Thanks to Symfony 4, which is just a small framework like Laravel, you don't have bundles or modules or whatever big frameworks call them, but you can have them if you want to. But Symfony 4 comes as a mini framework, so you can install it. It works for small to medium size frameworks, and you can even make it for large applications, and you can even have it for large applications. Now, let me just point you to the Slack thing that I was talking about. This is the Slack. If you go to the Symfony.com, if you click on the Slack icon at the bottom, you're gonna be taken to the Symfony workspace on the Slack. And you can just create your account, join them, and you can ask questions or answer questions or whatever you want to do, or even just chat. Now, enough chit chat, let's get to some Symfony stuff. Now, the first thing before we get started, we're gonna need some stuff. So in order to use a web application, we need a couple of stuff. So Symfony is a PHP framework, so obviously we're gonna need PHP. We're gonna need an Apache web server. I'm gonna use Apache. You can use Nginx if you want to. We're gonna need a database system. We're going to use MySQL in this case, and we're going to need Composer, which is just something to help us install packages and even install Symfony itself. And we're going to need a text editor or an IDE. I'm going to use PHP Storm because that's my favorite editor. So let's go ahead and get started with installing some stuff. Now, the basic thing, which is PHP and a web server and database, could be installed at once by using LAMP stack. Now, if you just go to Google this, so I'm gonna go to Google. I'm gonna type LAMP stack slack. Now I'm using Ubuntu, so I'm gonna download the correct version for me. So here's what I installed. I installed this bitnami.com. I'm gonna click on that link, And right away, it's going to take me to this page right here. As you can see, on Windows, Mac, Linux, I'm on this page. And I'm just going to click download for Linux, 64 bytes. And I'm going to, no thanks, 64-bit, not bytes. And I'm going to save the file. It's going to download that. As you can see, I already downloaded this and I installed this just to save some time. Now, after you download that, what you want to do is, it's not going to work if you just double click on it. So what you have to do is you have to open a terminal. Now, a terminal could be found, I'm using Ubuntu 18. So I can either click on this icon right here, show applications, and just start typing, type here, a terminal. And as you can see, I have 3 terminals installed. I have the regular terminal, which comes built in with the Ubuntu. I have Telex, which is my favorite, and that's what I use. And I have Xterm. So I'm going to use Telex, which is what I usually use. I'm going to click on that. And I'm using the fish bash, just in case you don't get the same thing. I have something different, but everything should be the same. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is we installed that. So let's open our browser, for the browser, and I'm going to hit to our downloads, and that's what I have my file. As you can see right here, this is the file that I installed, that I just downloaded, which I want to install. Now, what you want to do is you want to change the directory to that file, to that folder. What we're going to do is, if you type pwd, it's going to give you the current directory that you are in. This is home, and this is my username. If I type ls, it's going to give me a list of all the folders that I have, and the files that I have in this directory. And you're going to notice that I have the downloads folder, which is what I'm trying to get to. So what we're going to do is we're going to do cd downloads. Just spell downloads correctly. Right? Downloads like that. And now I'm inside the downloads folder. If I type ls, you're going to see that I'm going to get my file, which is this one right here. Now, usually it's not going to be in green. I ran a command previously before recording the video, so you're not going to get the same color as this. Now, what you have to do is type chmod +x and the name of that runnable file. After that, you're going to click enter. You are not going to get any feedback or whatever, but if you type this again, this should be green like this. You should get the same result. Now, to run this, you have to type // and the name of that Vietnamese lamp slack. Now, if you just type the first 2 or 3 letters and type hit tab, it's gonna autocomplete this for you, and you can just move on with your life and just hit enter. A few seconds later, you're gonna see this setup window. You just have to click next, and you can uncheck some of the stuff that you don't need. Like, I'm just gonna leave Symfony right there. I don't even know what that does, but I'm going to leave it right there. I'm going to hit next. And by default, it's not going to install for me. It's going to give me an error, but I'm going to hit next. As you can see, it's going to say the folder is not empty. This is not going to be the case for you if you don't have this installed. So what you're going to get next is just 2 inputs asking for the password to the database. I just entered 6 zeros and just clicked install. And it's going to install, and that's it. You don't have to do anything else. Now, after you are done installing this, you're gonna get something like this window right here, which is the manager for your lamp stack. You're gonna see we have 3 options. We have go to application. I'm gonna hit that, and it's gonna open this folder at this address, localhost 8080. Now, you are not gonna get the same thing as me. You're gonna get a welcome message from the Vietnamese application. And that's not the case for me, because I removed all the files that I have right there, just so I can move on faster and all that. So you're gonna get a welcome message, and that is going to confirm that the web server is working. If you don't get that, then you have something wrong, and the web server for you is not working. The second thing that you're gonna see is we have open PHP-MyAdmin. Now, PHP-MyAdmin is what we use to manage our database. As you can see right away, it's gonna ask me, it's gonna greet you to welcome to PHP-MyAdmin, and you're going to see we have a username and a password. Now, the username is just going to be root by default. The password is whatever you entered when you were installing the application. The 2 inputs that we just filled when we were installing the lamp stack. By default, I entered 6 zeros, so that's what I'm going to enter right now. I'm going to hit enter. A return key. As you can see, I'm in the dashboard. I have my databases right here. As you can see, I just installed this. I don't have any other databases right away, so we're gonna create our own when we get to that part. Now, the last thing, so let me just see what else we have here. We have open application folder. Now, when you click this, you're gonna go to the lamp stack directory where it's installed. By default, it's installed in the home directory for me. And you're going to see that we have a bunch of folders that we don't need to worry about. Now, the main thing that I want to point out is inside the Apache tool, htdocs, this is where your applications will be. Now, by default, when you open this folder, you're going to see a bunch of files. Those are the files that I was talking about when you open up. When you click go to application, you're going to get a greeting message. That greeting message is loaded from this place that I just showed you right here. So I just removed everything and we're going to get started right away. Actually, we are not going to start right away. We still need to install some stuff. Now we need to install PHP, the CLI version. Now we installed PHP when we installed the LAMP stack. Now this is great and it's gonna run PHP and everything, but we need PHP to be accessed from the command line. And command line is just to be accessed from the terminal because we're gonna use the terminal to install some stuff. And as I said, we're gonna use Composer. Now what we're gonna do without any time wasting chit chat, let's go ahead and search for something. So I'm just gonna close this and this. I'm gonna keep one window. And I'm gonna go to Google. And I'm just gonna type Ubuntu install PHP. So let's do PHP 7.2. Okay, so let's go and let's just take whatever link we find. So let's do this one. Let's see. So this is going to install Apache. We don't have to worry about that because we did that already. Unless you want to access the Apache from the command line again, you have to do that stuff. Now, what I'm interested in is this part right here. So installing PHP 7.2. Now, what you have to do is just take these commands and install them. As you can see, this is going to install PHP 7.2 and it's going to install the command line interface and it's going to install some stuff with that. After that, what I want to do is I want to install some commonly used PHP extensions, and those extensions are used by Composer and by PHP, by the Symfony installer, and a lot of other stuff. So what we have to do is just install those. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this, and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go back to my terminal. I'm going to hit Shift Insert to paste because there's no command, there's no Control V. I'm going to hit Enter, and I'm going to enter my password. I'm gonna hit enter, and as you can see, it's gonna do some stuff. It's gonna install some stuff for me. So I'm just gonna do Y, which is yes, and I'm gonna click enter. And if you get a dialog like this, just hit enter, and it's gonna continue working. And as you can see, it is done. Now let's go ahead and try something. If you do PHP like this, if you want to make sure that PHP is installed, you can do PHP -- version, and it's gonna give you the version of PHP that is installed, which is 7.2.17. Now that is great. Let's go ahead and do the second most important thing, which is this one. Now it's not the most important thing, but it's important. So let's go ahead and copy this one and let's paste it right below that. I'm gonna hit enter. And as you can see, nothing was installed as it was upgraded because I already installed everything. So as you can see, I have everything right here, but you're gonna get, it's gonna install for you. You're gonna get some messages like this, like getting some stuff and all that, but it's gonna work for you the same way. Now we have that installed. Now what we have to do next is install Composer. Now, usually what I do is just go to Google and I'm gonna do install Composer. And I'm just gonna choose whatever link. So I'm gonna choose the first one because I know it works that way because I already did this like many times ago. Okay, let me just zoom in. And as you can see, you can read through that if you want to, but what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and install some stuff. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to update your packages. Now, we already did that before we installed PHP, obviously right here, but you can just go ahead and do it again. It's not gonna hurt anyone. Next, what you have to do is you have to install the curl utility. The curl utility is what we're going to use to get the actual file, the actual installer, as you can see right here. The next thing, which is now I already have that, I'm not gonna run this, but if you want to, you can just copy. It's not gonna do anything in my case, just gonna tell me that it's already installed, but you can just go ahead and install it if you don't have that. Now, the next thing, which is the most important thing, is to download this. Now, we're gonna copy this command, we're gonna paste it. It is done. The last thing, which is the most important thing we have to do, is we have to copy this command, which is going to make Composer accessible globally for us from anywhere on our system. So we're going to just copy that command. We're going to paste it. We're going to hit return key, and it did something. So if we go ahead and try to, let's clear the screen. We'll go ahead and do Composer. You're going to see we're going to get a bunch of commands, which means Composer is installed and is working. Now we are almost done with everything right here. I think we can move on. I think we can go ahead and install Symfony right now. Now Symfony has two versions. So you're gonna see that we have the website skeleton version. So let's just go ahead and let's go to our docs, htdocs, and let's open the terminal right here. Now you can do two things. You can either go to the terminal right here and change the directory using the command line, or you can just go to your folder. I mean, this is specific to Linux. You can right click and open in terminal, and it's going to open the terminal with directory. And that's great for us. So what we need to do next is we need to install Symfony. So Symfony is pretty easy to install. We're going to use Composer, obviously. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Composer, create project, and if I can just spell create project correctly. So create project. As you can see, I already done some testing and all that. To install, so as I said, we have two versions. The first important part is Symfony. That is not going to change. So we're going to do Symfony. You can either install website skeleton like this, or you can just install skeleton like this. Now, the main difference between those is that website skeleton will install everything that you're going to need: the views, the templating, the templating engine, the Doctrine stuff, the annotation, everything that is related to Symfony to make an application work is going to be installed by default. If you use just the skeleton installer, you're going to get the core functionality of Symfony, and anything else you're going to need, you will have to install that. Now, this is the full course for Symfony. So what we're going to do is we're going to install the core functionality of Symfony, and we're going to start moving up from there. So I'm just going to call this SF course, which is Symfony course, and I'm going to hit enter. Now, this is the name of the folder that is going to be created in my htdocs. Now, htdocs, as I said, is the place where all the application, all my web applications lives. So I'm going to hit enter. And as you can see, it's done, and we have most of the core functionality that we're going to need. We have Symfony Flex, the cache, the container, and all that stuff, that good stuff that we're going to need. Now, as you're going to see right here at the bottom, it says two things. Run your application. You can either go, create a code. So actually, this is not what I was expecting. Oh, this one. So as you can see, you can run a web server without even installing Apache or all this stuff. You're going to obviously need PHP in a database manager, but you don't need Apache actually. You can just run the built-in server that comes with Symfony. Now that actual server does not come built in when you install the skeleton. You have to install it. Now this is a good chance to introduce Symfony Flex. Now Symfony Flex is just a plugin for Symfony that helps you install new plugins, new components in your application. The way that works is that it uses something called a recipe. If you go to the website called flex.symfony.com, you can see all the recipes that already exist in the on the server. You can install any one of these that you want. As you can see, we have two types. We have the contrib, which is the contributions by the community, and we have the official ones, which are from the Symfony developers themselves. As you can see, we have plenty of packages right here. And you can go ahead and filter those by searching for the recipes. We're going to type server, and as you can see, we're going to get the web server bundle. So as I said, you can run each application separately, and probably that's what I'm going to do because I don't want to set up a virtual host. And let me explain to you what a virtual host is. So We just installed our application, as you can see right here. So everything is done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to see if that is running. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to localhost 8080, which is where my server is running. I'm gonna hit enter. As you can see, I'm gonna get this folder, which is SF course, which is the project that I just created. If I click on that, I'm gonna get a bunch of folders. Now, this is a good chance to introduce to start talking about the architecture, the structure of the folders of Symfony. I'm gonna start about talking about the most important ones, which are the src folder in the config folder. Now we need one more file folder, which is templates, but that's for the view stuff that we're just gonna install. That's for the view stuff that we're gonna get after we install Twig. Now this is a good chance to start actually talking about MVC, which is what Symfony uses, and Symfony is based on MVC, which stands for Model View Controller. Now, MVC is just an architecture that separates your application into three separate parts. The M stands for model, which is, and the model is everything related to your business logic or your actual code, or database entities or repository. The V stands for view, and it's everything related to what the user will see. In simple words, you can say that it stands for everything related to HTML related, so that's it. Anything HTML related will be the view. The C stands for the controller, and the controller, as we will see in a second, is what helps orchestrate between the model and the view section. It's what we will use to interact with the database and send some data to the view and handle forms and much more. So that's MVC. Now, the view in this case is the templates that we don't have, but we're going to get that in a second. The SRC is where we're going to do most of our work. So SRC is where we're going to have our controller, where we're going to have our services. We're going to talk about services when we get to those. Is where we have our entities and where we have our own logic. So if we want to create some code, we're going to put it in the SRC folder. The folder that I want to talk about is the config. So config is where all the configuration that we're going to have will be living inside this folder. So as you can see, this bootstrap.php, you don't have to worry about that. Bundles are where you want to add some bundles. Now this, you won't have to actually touch or modify this file manually. It's going to be done by Symfony Flex. Whenever you install a new bundle or something that you're going to need, it's going to be added automatically by Symfony Flex to this file right here. We have packages. Packages are where we're going to have, so you don't have, I know this is going to be overwhelming for you, the amount of information that I'm throwing on you right now, but just to keep things simple. The config folder is where we're going to do most of our configuration if we need to configure anything. The SRC folder is where we're going to write most of our code. The templates are where our views and HTML files are going to be living. We have one more folder, which is the public folder. Now this is the main entry to our application. So if you click on the public folder and you see this thing right here, this window that I'm seeing right now, it means everything is working and you are ready to go and start using Symfony. If you don't get this and you get some other error, it means that you have done something wrong, and you should probably check your installation and Google some stuff if you get some error that you don't understand. Now we have our Symfony application working and running. Now this is not working on the public just like this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and create our first controller, and we're gonna try to create our own route, and see how that is going to work. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna open up this folder, this SF course folder that we just created. I'm gonna try to open up this with my editor, and we will continue from there. All right, so I just opened the project with my favorite editor. I'm going to use PHP Storm. It's going to help me a lot, especially if you are just getting started. It's going to be a lot of help to use PHP Storm or an IDE. I actually don't recommend using just a text editor or something that does not provide any help or any intelligence, but that's up to you. So you can just for your information. So this is PHP Storm, and as you're going to see inside our controller, so we are trying to create our new controller. We have nothing. Now this is where we're going to start talking about the console. So in Symfony, we have a console that we can use, and we can use to generate some code that we don't want to write ourselves. So if you want to write a controller, what you have to do is you have to create a file manually. You're going to have to create something like the main. So main controller.php. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to have to do PHP. I'm going to try to give it a namespace. It's going to be app controller. And I'm going to give it, so obviously it's going to be a class, and the class name is going to be main controller. And this class needs to extend the abstract controller. So let me just do, and this is the beauty of using an IDE. As you can see, I'm going to do abstract controller, and I'm going to get some IntelliSense and some help. So I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to import the namespace for me at the bottom. As you can see, it's going to use that. And I can just go ahead and start writing some stuff. So this is how you can create a controller. Now, as you can see, you have to write all this stuff if you don't have an IDE, if you're not using something that has an IntelliSense and it can do automatic importing for you. Now, using the console, you can just type one line and you're going to be done with this. So I'm going to remove this. I'm going to delete this file that I just created. And I'm going to go back to the terminal. So inside my terminal, I can do, so first then I am still in the root where all my projects live. What I have to do is if I do ls, I'm going to see SF course. Now this is not supposed to be here. Don't worry about that. SF course is our folder where we are working. What I gotta do is I gotta do cd, which means change directory, SF course. And I'm going to hit enter, and I am now inside that. So let's clear the screen. And to be able to access the console, what you have to do is you have to do php bin/console. Now, bin is just a folder, and console is the binary that lives inside the bin folder. So if you do php bin/console, you're gonna run this this binary that we have right here. If you hit enter, you're gonna see a bunch of commands. Now, these commands are from the console and are specific to Symfony. As you can see, these are the available commands. We have about, help, list, assets, cache, config, debug, lint, router. Now, these are the basic stuff that comes with Symfony Skeleton, the minimal version. Now, I want to make a controller. So how I'm going to do that? I need a command called make. Now, make by default is not included right here. So what you have to do is we have to go back to our Symfony recipe server, and we're going to search for the make. As you can see, we have the maker bundle right here, and it has these aliases: generator, make, maker, maker bundle. Now you can use any one of these right here to install it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my terminal, and I'm going to do composer require. Now this composer require is going to use Symfony Flex to install this for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the alias make. So I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to paste it right here. So composer require make will install the maker bundle for me, which I'm going to use to generate some controllers and other stuff. All right, as you can see, it is done. And if we go ahead and run the php bin/console command again, you're going to see that we're going to get a longer list right now, and we're going to see this make right here, which includes a bunch of commands like make auth. We're going to get to that in a second, not in a second, but we're going to get to that. Make command, which can create a command for you. So this is a command, and you can even use the make command to make a command, a customized command for yourself. You can create a controller, which is what we're going to use. You can make a CRUD. You can make an entity. We're going to get to entities later. You can make a fixture, a form, and you can see we have a bunch of other stuff that you can make. Now let's keep going with our example, and we're going to make a controller. So let's do make controller, and we're going to call it main controller, just like the one we used before. So as I'm going to hit enter, I'm going to get an error. And as you can see, this is the beauty of Symfony Flex. So the error is self-explanatory. It needs something to work. This thing that it needs is annotations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain what annotations are in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy those annotations and I'm going to do, so I'm going to copy composer required annotations and I'm just going to hit Shift Insert and I'm going to hit return key and it's going to install the annotations for me. All right, as you can see, it is done. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna rerun the command. So I'm gonna hit the up arrow to go through the history of my commands. I'm gonna hit again, and as you can see, I'm gonna get my command and to make a controller, and I'm gonna hit return key. And as you can see, it says success. So green means success. It says that it created inside the src folder, inside the controller folder, it created something called the main controller.php. Let's go ahead and see if that is true. So I'm going to go back to my IDE, which is PHP Storm. And indeed, we have a file. We have the main controller. Now let's go ahead and open that file up. And as you can see, we have something similar to what we had before. Now, the things that we don't have is this route, and we have this index function right here, as you can see. Now, this is what's called an annotation. Now, inside Symfony, you have three ways to configure your stuff. You can either use annotations like this, which looks similar to a comment. And you have inside the config, we have examples of the YAML file. For example, this YAML file is just another way to say this right here. So this is an annotation that says that this route, so this is our route. We're going to start talking about routes in a second. It says /main, and this is the name of the route. Now you can do the same thing. If you don't want to do this, if you don't want to use annotations or you are not a fan of them, you can get rid of this. And you can use this routes.yam. Now this is the same thing. This is the name of the route that we have. So let me just put that back just so you can see. Cancel. So this is the name. So we have main. If we want to make the same thing, we're gonna change this index to main right here. So that's the name of the route. Now this is the path. This is what we have right here. As you can see, /main. We can do something like /main right here. And the controller is going to point to which action to use. In this case, it's the index. So if we want it to use something like this, we're gonna have to change this from from default controller to main controller and call it index, which is going to point to that function. Now I'm gonna keep using annotations. I'm not gonna use YAML, but just so that you know it exists and you can use it if you want to. Now, how do we actually? So this, as I said, this is a route. So if I go ahead to my browser and I do /main, it's going to give me this thing right here. As you can see, for now, this is returning a JSON that says, welcome to your new controller. And this is the path where, so this is just some data. You can have whatever you want here. So we can go ahead and change this to welcome freeCodeCamp. So as you can see, I just changed this. Now, if I go back to my browser and I try to do that, so this is my application. This is where my application is running. So if I do /main, which should take me to there, it's going to give me an error. As you can see, it says that it's not found. That's because by default, when you do /public, it's looking for the index.php file. Now, if I do that and I hit enter, I'm going to get the same welcome message as before. So what I have to do is I have everything that I need to add to my route needs to be after this. So I have to do main like this. And as you can see, I get welcome freeCodeCamp, as you can see right here, which means our controller is working, our route is set up, and everything is ready to work. Now, as you're going to notice, this is ugly as hell. So nobody likes to use all this stuff right here. Now, to fix this, you have to set up a virtual host. Now, I'm not going to do that. I feel like this is outside the scope of Symfony. It's not a Symfony specific thing. It's kind of a web server thing. So just so that you know, you can do that and you can set up a virtual host that will take all this stuff away. So you can have a pretty URL like, for example, sfcourse.dev/main. So this looks like an actual URL, not this junk that we have right here. So you can do that, or if you are using the built-in Symfony server, you can actually just do localhost 8080, the port, or you can even run the name. You can give it like sfcourse.dev, just the way we did a second ago, and you can do /main. Now, I'm not, as I said, I feel like that's outside the scope of the Symfony course. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep it this way, or we can just go ahead and use the built-in Symfony server. Now, this does not bother me, so I'm just going to keep using this. Now, we just created our first route, which is going to take me to, so this is the first route. Let's say that we want to create our own welcome message. So, well, if I get rid of main, as you can see, we're going to still get this page right here. Let's say that we want to create our own custom message and our own home page, if you want to say so. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change this from main to just slash, which means the home. So this is the root directory, if you want to call it directory of our application. I'm going to change the name of that route to home, and I'm going to keep the function index, and I'm going to keep the same message. Actually, you know, I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to return a new response. Now, what's a response? A response is something that every action inside Symfony needs to return. Now, I'm talking about the actions, not every single function, but this is an action. So each action within a controller needs to return a response. And that response lives inside Symfony component HTTP foundation. So don't get this messed up. A lot of people import the wrong namespace and they just spend 3 days trying to debug something that is very simple. Always pay attention to the namespace that you are importing. In this case, we need HTTP foundation. So we're going to hit enter. As you can see, I'm using PHP Storm, so it's going to import that automatically for me at the top. And you can just do a semicolon at the end. Now this is empty. So if I go ahead and try to refresh this, as you can see, I'm going to get an empty page because I did not add anything to this response. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a string that contains some HTML. So I'm just going to do something like h1. H1, it seems like I forgot how to use proper HTML, and I'm going to just do welcome freeCodeCamp. Okay, the F needs to be that, and I'm just going to go ahead and refresh my page. And as you can see, I get my message, welcome freeCodeCamp, which means this is working. So our index has changed from just that regular Symfony welcome message to this custom controller action that we just made. So we just made our first route. Now let's go ahead and try to create another function, so another action with another route, just to get familiar with this step. So what we're going to do is just below this, we're going to create another action. So let's do public function, and you can call it whatever thing you want. So in this case, I'm just going to call it custom and just going to leave it like this, so it doesn't matter. Now, this is just a function. So if I just try to do something with it, it's not going to work. Now, what I need to do is I need, as I said before, to set up a route for this because I want this to be accessible from the browser. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the same route and I'm going to paste it right here. And I'm going to change this from just slash because we have two. So I'm going to change that from slash to slash custom. Let's say that that's what we want. We want this action called custom. Now I'm going to change the name. So I'm going to change that to custom as well. And we need to return something. So if I just leave it like this empty and I try to go to that URL, as you can see, I'm going to get an error. The controller does not return this response and exception. The controller must return something that extends this response object. So it must return a response. Now let's go ahead and return the response. So we're just going to do return new response. And I'm just going to do something like, let's copy the same thing that we did right here. And let's call this, just give it something like a custom page. All right, so I have that set up. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this page. And as you can see, I'm going to get my message custom page. So that's it. We created two, as you can see, we created a controller. We created two routes and we can access them both. Now let's do something. Let's go ahead and talk some more about routes. Now we're gonna get to those in a second. We're gonna explore them furthermore. But I want to do something. Let's say that we want to create a page that says welcome to some username that we're going to enter. Now we're not going to use a form or something. We're just going to use the URL at the top. Now we're gonna change our custom function that we just created right here to do that for us. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna change the URL. Now, as I said, we want to be able to do something like slash username. I'm gonna do like free. So I'm just gonna do free like that for camp. When I hit enter, as you're gonna see, it's gonna say that this route does not exist. That's because we have not configured it yet. So that's what we're gonna try to do. Now, how do we get it to take something that is going to be dynamically entered right here? We're gonna go back to our route, to our custom slash, and what we have to do is we have to set up a property that is going to be dynamically changed. And how to do that? We're gonna use the curly braces like this, and we're gonna give it whatever name we want. So let's say hello name. So this name right here is going to be accessed. So we're going to access that, and that is going to be the name that we're going to greet. So instead of welcome page, we're going to say welcome to that username. And how do we get access to that username right here? So that's what we're going to see right now. Now, inside each action, we have access to something called the request. Now, the request is where all our, so basically is a request that comes from the client. It includes a lot of stuff like the data that he sent, the queries that he sent. It includes his address IP and a bunch, probably his time zone and a bunch of other information that we can use. Now, to get access to that request, what you have to do is within the parameters that you have for your function or your action, we can just use request. Now, again, you need to pay attention to the namespace. You don't want to import the wrong namespace for the request. You want to import the HTTP Foundation one. Don't do the browser kit stuff, whatever. Just do import the HTTP Foundation namespace. Pay attention to that. It's going to save you a lot of time and it's going to avoid some headaches. So request, let's give that a name. So we have request like that, and we got access to that. Now I'm going to update the PHP doc just to get rid of that line. And next, we can go ahead. So how do we take a look at the request? How do we know what the request contains? Now, within Symfony, we have a function called dump. Now, we use dump to, it's similar to var dump, but it's actually better. So I'm just going to show you how it looks like in a second. So you can use dump to dump the request. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to dump the request, and we're going to see what the request contains. Now, if I go ahead and just refresh this page, it's not going to work. As you can see, it's going to tell me that this custom does not exist. That's because this is, so I need to enter the name. I need this name to exist. If I want this to be optional, so as you can see, we don't have it right now. What I can do is I can add this exclamation mark, which is going to make this optional for me. So if I go ahead and just save this and refresh the page, as you can see, even if I don't enter any username, it's still going to work. And as you can see, it's working. We still have an error, but it's a different error, but that is working. As you can see, we got custom without a username, and it's working. Now, as you can see, the error is that we are trying to call a function that does not exist, this dump function. Now, to use that, we have to go back to our Symfony recipe server. As I said, we are using the minimal version, which does not include anything, and we have to go and look for the dump. So I'm going to type dump, and as you can see, we're going to get the Symfony var dumper. So what we have to do is we have to install that. Let's go back to our terminal, and let's do composer require, and I'm going to use this alias right here, which is called dump, and let's just do dump. As you can see, it's done. And if we go ahead and try to do this, actually, before I refresh the page, actually, let's just go ahead and refresh this. As you can see, this is what the request looks like. Now, the dump is nicer because, as you can see, you can fold. You don't have all the information, like you don't have a million lines that you have to scroll through. You got all the basic stuff that you're going to need, request. So this is what the request contains, and you can go ahead and fold and unfold whatever you want. As you can see, we have the server and we have all the information that we possibly need. Now, while we're just doing that, one thing that I didn't do in the beginning, and I feel like somebody is probably going to be asking about this, I want to use the built-in Symfony just so, let's say somebody don't want to install all this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the built-in Symfony, and I'm going to show you how to use that, and even to get rid of all this nasty stuff that we have right here. So I'm going to go back to Symfony recipe server, and I'm going to look for server. Now this is the web server that I'm looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my terminal. I'm going to do composer require, if I can just spell require correctly, and I'm going to do server. As you can see, it is done, downloading and installing the server. I don't have to do anything else thanks to Symfony Flex. Now, all I have to do is run the server. So how do I run that server? Now, what I'm going to do is we have to, so actually, you can just go ahead and let's do php bin/console. So we're going to run this from a command. So if I do php bin/console, you're going to see that we have a new, a set of new installed commands, which belongs to the server namespace. It's called, the first one is server run, which we're going to use. And there's also server start, which does the same thing as server run, but it does that in the background. So I'm going to show you the difference in a second. Actually, let's do it right now. So if I do php bin/console server run, as you can see, it's gonna take this terminal and it's gonna keep using it. It's gonna post whatever request that I make right here. So this is where my application is living, as I'm going to show you right now. If I go back to, as you can see, 127.0.0.1, it's just the address for localhost. So if I type localhost, it's going to mean the same thing. Now the port is the most important thing. It's 8,000. So let's go back to our web browser and let's try to do that. I'm going to leave this open right here, and I'm going to do localhost. Now it says 8080, so I'm going to change that to 8,000. And I'm going to hit enter. And as you can see, I'm going to get the same thing. Welcome freeCodeCamp. Now you're not going to get the same junk that you have right here, which is SF course, public, index.php, and then you get access to what you want, but you can just access that directly from here. Now, even this could be customized. You can make this like sfcourse.dev or .local, whatever you want, but I'm not going to bother with that stuff right now. So as you can see, we get the same thing. So I can do just custom right here, and I'm gonna get access to the same thing. So that's that same thing. As you can see, it looks nicer and it works the same way as the server. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna get rid of all this because I don't want to work with this anymore. And I'm just gonna use the built-in server that I use right now. Now let's go back and see the difference. As you can see, this is going to be debugging and give me all the information about what's happening right now. And that's for the server run. Now, if I want to stop this, all I have to do is hit Control-C. I'm going to do that, Control-C, and it's going to get me out of that. Now, the server is no longer running, as you can see right here. So what we have to do is we have the other option, which is server start. Now, server start is going to start the server, but it's going just to start it and give you back your terminal. It's not going to be outputting this anywhere. It's going to be in your log files for that Symfony project, but it's not going to give you like real-time stuff that you can see right here, unlike the server run. Now to stop this server, all you have to do is server stop, and it's going to stop that server. Now what I'm going to do is I like to actually see what's happening from time to time. So what I'm going to do is within PHP Storm, I have access to a terminal that's built in within the IDE. So if I do Alt F12, it's going to give me this terminal right here. And right here, I can do php bin/console. I can just type whatever command I want. And I'm going to do the same thing. So server run. And it's going to run the server for me right here. And I can just close it and open it whenever I want to. And that's pretty neat and nice. And I can take advantage of that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to use this stuff, this server start in the background, whatever. So I'm just trying to show you what you can do with it. So I'm going to clear everything, and we can go back and keep working on our custom that is going to greet the user. So let's go back to our custom function. We're going to refresh this, and as you can see, we're going to get the same thing, and we're going to keep working on that. Now, how do I get to all the parameters that I'm going to pass after this? Now, for now, I don't have anything, but if I take a look under the request, as you can see, I have nothing right now, and even the attributes. So in the attributes, so request, query, whatever, I don't have anything in the parameters. The attributes I have some things. So I have the route, which is the custom, and I have name. So name is what I have to enter after this, and it's currently null. That's because I allow it to be null when I define this right here. This is the controller that is going to use, and this is the route parameter. As you can see, we have name null again. Now let's go ahead and try something. Let's enter something like freeCodeCamp after this. Let's take a look at the attributes again. And the parameters, as you can see, we have name freeCodeCamp, and the array is going to be the same thing. Now the request is still empty, the query is still empty, everything else is still empty because we are using this param right here. We are getting that from the attribute. Now, how do we get that from inside our action? What you have to do is from the request, we can call the get function. And the get function, it takes a key, like, for example, a name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it the parameter name that I have right here. So I'm just going to pass name. And I'm going to refresh this. Now, everything is going to disappear. All I'm going to get is the name that I passed right here. Let's get rid of that and see what's going to happen. So it's going to say that's an undefined offset. That's because I have slash something, which is not a valid thing. What I have to do is get rid of that slash, and I can do just custom, and it's going to give me back null. So let's just, all we have to do right now, so let's put back welcome everyone. As you can see, I got everyone, so I want to concatenate that right here in the response. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to do welcome, and let's just do some basic ugly concatenation right here. And we can just do request. Or actually, you know what? Let's just use this, and I'm going to save that in a parameter called name. And let's just do that name right here. So let's go ahead and refresh this. And as you can see, I get welcome everyone. So if I change this to welcome Ben, I get welcome Ben. If I change to welcome Bo Carnes, I get the same thing, welcome Bo Carnes. And that's pretty much it for this part. I feel like this took so long. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start talking about views. So as you can see, this is just returning some ugly stuff for us. It's returning just this response HTML, and you don't want to do that ever. So how much HTML can you even fit in this small string right here? So what we're going to do is we're going to start using views. And for view, the templating engine that we're going to use is called Twig. So this is specific to Symfony. Now, we cannot just go ahead and start using Twig because we have to install it first. So let's go ahead and search for Twig. And as you can see, we're going to get some stuff. Twig Bridge, bundle, so this extensions, and all that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install the Twig bundle, which is going to install everything that we're going to need to start working with this. So again, I'm going to go back to my terminal. I'm going to do composer require. I'm going to paste template. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to install the templating engine for me, and I don't have to worry about anything else. All right, as you can see, we have Twig installed. Now let's go ahead and see how we can use it. Now the first thing you're going to notice after we go back to our application, we have a new folder. It's called templates. Now this is what I was talking about. This is the MVC. This is the V section of that MVC. So this is where all the views are going to live, inside the templates. One other thing that you're going to notice inside our packages, we have a new file. It's called twig.yaml. So this was not initially here. It just added right now. Even this was not here. We just created it when we installed annotations. But within twig.yaml, you're going to see that we can configure some stuff. So this is the default path where it's going to look for the views. As you can see, it's inside templates. And some stuff, some strict variables and all that you don't need to worry about right now. Now, let's go back and close some of this stuff so that nobody gets confused. We can go ahead and set up a route for our file. Now, let's go back and do this for both our index.html and our custom index action and the custom action. Now, instead of just returning something like this, return your response, what you can use is just do return this render. Now this render, as you can see, this render function is not inside our main controller, but it lives inside the abstract controller right here. So we're going to use that function. As you can see, this render takes some stuff. The first thing it takes is the place where that template is. Now I'm going to show you how that works. So if I do something like home/index.html.twig, and I just do, close that, put that semicolon at the end. This is going to look for that view within these templates. Now, home is just the folder. Index.html.twig is the extension that you should use for Twig files. Now, we don't have this file right now, so this home, we don't have even that folder. As you can see, the only thing we have is base.html.twig. Now, if I just leave it like this and I try to go to that route, which is, okay, it's wrong, I get rid of custom and I just try to get to that place. As you can see, it's going to tell me that it cannot find the template inside the templates folder. Now, what we have to do at this point is go ahead and create that. So what we're going to do first inside templates, we're going to create the directory which is called home. And within that home directory, we're going to create our index.html.twig. So index.html.twig file, I'm going to hit enter, and we can have whatever we want right here. So I'm going to just do an h1, and we're going to do welcome from Twig, like that. So let's go ahead and refresh this and see what we're going to get. And as you're going to see, we get welcome from Twig. Now, it's pretty much the same thing, but this is a Twig file. It's separate. You can have whatever you want. Now, we did that from the main controller. Let's go ahead and do that for the custom, the index action. Let's go ahead and do that for the custom action. Now, we're going to get rid of this response that we have right here, and we're going to do return this render, and we're going to render something. So we're just going to use the same folder. We're going to do home, and we're going to call this custom.html.twig. So the same thing like right here. So as usual, we're going to do custom, and we're going to get an error. It's not going to be able to find the template. That's because we haven't created it yet. So let's go ahead and do the same thing. Let's create a new file. Let's do custom.html.twig. I'm going to hit enter, and let's do something like h1, welcome. So if you remember correctly, in the response, we had something like welcome in the username. So how do we get access to that username right here? So that name that we just entered like here. So how do we get access to that? As you can see, it's just going to give me a welcome. Well, you can just not do name like this. It's not going to work because it does not even know what name is. So what we have to do is, from the controller, we have to tell it that we need to pass this name to this view so that this view can be able to use it. Now, how do we do that? All you have to do is send everything in the second parameter in the render function. I'm going to put a colon after the name. I'm going to send an array, which is going to be all the data that I'm going to need. And as I said, I'm going to give this name. So the first thing is this is just a regular PHP array. So the key is going to be the name that is going to be used within the actual template in the actual view. So what we're going to call it, I'm going to call it name. You can call it whatever you want. The second thing is the value. In this case, it's going to be the name variable. So I'm going to pass that. Now I'm going to go back to my custom.html. You can just do something like this. It's not going to work. As you can see, it's going to render that that as a string. Now, Twig uses a separate special syntax. It's going to use something like Angular or Vue.js use. It's to use two curly braces, and you can put whatever you want within that. So everything between that will be treated as PHP or Twig. So in this case, what we need to do is you cannot do name like this. That's not going to work. It's going to tell you that it does not know what this character is. You have to pass the variable just by using its name. So welcome, two curly braces, and the name of the variable, which is name. Now let's go ahead and see that. As you can see, it says welcome freeCodeCamp. Now basically you are almost done with the controller and view stuff. You know how to set up most of the stuff that you basically need. Now I want to add some stuff. I want to add some CSS and some JS stuff to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Bootstrap. So let's go ahead and get Bootstrap. I'm going to get that from some sort of CDN. And I'm going to take whatever I'm going to need. So basically, for now, I'm just going to need the bootstrap.min.css. I just need the CSS stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy. So this is the fourth version. So I'm just going to copy this. And I'm going to go back and see how I can include it right here. Now, before I start using Bootstrap, I want to mention one other thing that you can do with Twig, which is the main thing, why you want to use something like Twig. Now, let's say that you have like a nav bar that you want to have to be repeated between all the views. For example, we're going to have a nav bar that is going to take us to the home page. It's going to have the logo on it and all that. So how do we do that? So basically that is going to be repeated, and you don't want to have to copy that all over the place. You don't want to copy that each time you need that. It's going to make it harder for you to change it. If you want to update something, you're going to have to go through all the million views that you have. It's not something recommended to use. What you can use is something called a layout. So for example, this base.html.twig serves as a layout, so we can actually use it. As you can see, it has the doc type, it has the HTML, the head and the body, and we can actually just include Bootstrap right here. So let's go ahead and try something like that. Let's go ahead and add Bootstrap right before the style sheet. So as I said, I just copied this cdn.js of Bootstrap and I just included it right here. But as you can see, this is not going to be used yet. If I take a look at the source code right here, if I do view page source, as you can see, it just says welcome freeCodeCamp, and it's not even valid HTML. It does not have the doc type in it, HTML tags and all that. So what we have to do is we need some way to tell this to use this, but just put this content inside the body. Now you're gonna notice something called blocks. We have blocks right here. So the main one I want to focus about right now is the body. So how is this body block working right now? So you can define a block like this. So this block is going to be filled with something when called in other views. Now, before you can even do that, we have to extend this base.html.twig that we have right here. So how we can do that? We can just go to the first line of our application. We can do open a curly braces and do a percent symbol, and we can use the extend. As you can see, extend, and it's going to ask me, it's not going to ask me, but the second thing that I can provide after that is which layout I want to extend. So in this case, I want to extend the base.html layout. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do base.html.twig. Okay, let's go ahead and see what that's going to give us. So I'm within the custom.html twig. I'm going to refresh this, and as you can see, it's going to tell me that this view right here is extending another view, but we cannot have just tags to be thrown all over the place. So this needs to be placed within another block. And how do we specify that block? For example, in our case, we want to put that within the body of that layout. So we can do something like this. We can do the same thing, do block body, and we can end the block right here. So let's do end block, and inside that we can put whatever we want to be put in the body of our file. So if I do that, as you can see, it's going to work. Now you're going to notice that it changed a little bit. That's because if I take a look at the source code, so if I do that, you're going to notice that it's extending the base layout, and the base layout is including the Bootstrap.js, which means we can now use Bootstrap in all our files. Now let's go back to our main. As you're going to notice, it's still ugly and it does not use any Bootstrap. Let's do the same thing. Let's extend the Bootstrap. Let's extend the base layout for that. So I'm going to do extend, and I'm going to do base.html.twig. And as before, we're not allowed to just throw this anywhere we want. We're going to have to use a block. So let's put that within the block body. And let's end the block. So end block, and we have that welcome from Twig. Let's go ahead and refresh this. As you can see, welcome from Twig. And we can make all sorts of changes that we want. For example, let's put this block inside a container. So we can do that. We can do div plus container. So this is just Bootstrap stuff, it's not Symfony stuff. And everything is going to be centered within the container. And we can have our, as I said, let's go ahead and steal something from the documentation. So Bootstrap for navbar, and let's just copy something from that, and we can use it, just to demonstrate this thing. So I'm just going to steal this, and I'm going to go back to my layout file, and I'm going to paste this somewhere around here. So if I go ahead and refresh, you're going to see we have a nav bar right here. Now this is a bit big, so it's not going to be working properly. But as you can see, we have our search, we have everything that is going to be repeated. Now let's change these two links that we have right here. I want to have the home and I want to have some other page. So for example, the home now should take me to this home that I have right here. So let's go ahead and change that. Let's change some stuff. I'm going to change this to freeCamp. Now, this is where I want to talk about the names that we were specifying for these routes right here. So this is where the names are going to be useful. So within Twig, if you want to generate a URL that points to some action, you want to do that right here. So you can have like any URL that exists in your application. If you want to actually generate that route, what you have to do is use two curly braces. So that's syntax for Twig, and you can use the path function. So if I do path like this, and I'll try to give it, so the second parameter needs to be the name of that route. So in our case, the name is home. So if I just copy this and I go back to the path and just paste that right in there, if I go back, as you can see, this is before even we refresh. Right now is just say this hashtag, as you can see at the bottom. Keep your eyes right here. As you can see, it says just hashtag. We don't want to have that. We want to have the home page that we want, that we have in our application. So I'm going to refresh this. As you can see, the name changed, and even the URL. So you can see right here, the URL has changed. We have localhost 8000. So if I click that, it's going to take me right here. Let's go back to the custom page just to prove that it's working. It says welcome something, but if I click on that, it's going to take me to welcome from Twig. So that's how we can generate a URL. Now, how do we generate a URL? With parameters. Now we can just get rid of this home right here. We don't need that. And link, I'm just going to get rid of some of the stuff that we don't need. I'm going to get rid of the form, and I'm going to generate a link. So I'm going to say greet Balkans, for example. Now, how do we generate a URL with parameters? Now, as before, we're going to use the curly braces. We're going to use the path function. We're going to give it the name of the function of the action that we want to use. In this case, it's called custom. So let's copy that. Let's put that in the path. And how you want to pass parameters is by using the second argument of the path function. So we're going to use something that looks like an object in JavaScript. And the first thing you're going to pass right there is the parameter name. In this case, it's called name. So let's go ahead and do name like that, a colon, 2 points, whatever you want to call them. And the second thing is going to be the name or the parameter that you want to use. You can pass something dynamic, or in my case, I'm just going to pass the name that I just used right here. So I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to refresh and see if this is going to work. So as you can see, I got rid of everything right here, but I have my greet Balkans, which should take me to the custom / that URL. So if I click that, indeed, it's working. And as you can see, that is working properly and perfectly fine. Now that we have covered the basic stuff of controllers and routes and views, what I want to do next is focus on the Doctrine or the database related stuff. So we're going to go ahead and start writing some very basic stuff. So the first thing we're going to need to do, obviously, is install Doctrine, because we don't have that installed. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and head to our Symfony recipe server. We're going to search for Doctrine. And you're going to see you're going to get a bunch of stuff. Now, this might confuse you a bit because there is no Doctrine related stuff directly. But we have to do something but we have to actually search not for Doctrine, but ORM. So if I do ORM like this, it's going to give me some packages. And the package that I'm looking for exactly is this Symfony ORM pack. Now to install it, this is going to install everything related to Doctrine. You don't have to worry about getting anything else. This is going to give you most of the stuff that you're going to need. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the alias Doctrine to install this. And we're going to go back to our terminal, and we're going to do composer require ORM or Doctrine. Yeah, let's use ORM. It's shorter, so we're going to do ORM, and we're going to hit return key. And let's just leave it installed where it needs. All right, so we have some stuff that's been done. As you can see, everything is installed. It did some stuff. And as you can see, it's going to tell you to modify your database URL config in the .environment file. We're going to take a look at this in a second. And as it's going to tell you that you can configure so that's where we can configure MySQL or whatever driver we want to use. And it created this doctrine.yaml within our configuration file. Now let's go ahead and take a look at these files quickly. Now the first, as you can see, inside our SRC, so let's start from the bottom up. I don't want to mess this up. So as you're going to notice, inside our packages, we have a new file called Doctrine and Doctrine Migrations. So I'm going to go to Doctrine and explain this stuff. So the parameters, as you can see, you can set this parameter if you don't have anything set within your environment file. So we're going to take a look at the environment file. Actually, let's just start with it because it's the simplest one. Now, as you're going to see, you can find the environment file in your root directory. So it's not within any folder. You're going to find the .env file. If you open that up, you're going to find that we have a bunch of stuff. So this is Symfony related stuff. You don't need to worry about this. But this is the Doctrine stuff which matters to us right now. As you can see, this is the database URL. This is the most important part of the configuration. And this is where you define that you're going to be using MySQL, and it's where you define your username, your database password, your address, and your port, and last, your database name. Now we're going to come back to this where we need to configure and create our database. Let me just explain some of the stuff that you can see right here. Now this RM section, we don't even need to worry about that, especially that this is for beginners, and we won't even look at that. Now, as you can see, it's going to say the driver that it's using is MySQL. The server version is 7.5, 5.7, doesn't matter. The charge set is that. And the most important thing is the URL. As you can see, this URL is getting that from the environment file. So this is how you get something from the environment file. You're going to resolve the database URL. In this case, it's MySQL. So this value is just taken and being copied and being pasted here. So that's the most basic stuff that you need to know. So if you want to change something for your database, you want to change it right here. For example, the username, the password, the port, or the database name. These stuff needs to be changed right here. Now, within SRC folder, you're going to notice that we have three things created for us. We have entity, migrations, and repository. Now, I'm not going to be using migrations in this video, but it's pretty simple. It's if you have ever used Laravel before, it's pretty much the same thing, and you can just check the documentation if you want to use those. I'm just going to keep stuff pretty simple, and I'm going to be doing what I usually do. So entities, I'm going to come back to that. Repository, I'm going to come back to that. Migrations, as I said, I'm not going to use those, so that's it for the SRC folder. Now, that's pretty much all we need to know about this stuff. Now, how do we interact with the database? Now, first, we need to have a database to interact with. Now, we can start by changing the configuration inside the environment file. The first thing we need to do is we need to change the username. Now, the username, if you remember, is root. The password is whatever you set when you installed that. So in my case, it's 6 zeros. The port is going to be pretty much the same. I'm not really sure if it's the same or has changed. I'm going to check. And last, here we have the database name. So I'm going to call this SF course, which is Symfony course. And I'm going to save everything right here. Now, one more thing that's been changed is inside the PHP bin/console, if you take a look, you're going to say that we have a bunch of new functions or commands, which belong to the Doctrine stuff. As you can see, if I go up, the font is relatively large. That's why you are seeing this stuff right here. As you can see, we have a bunch of commands that's been installed when we install Doctrine RM. And we can make use of these. Now, the first thing we're going to take a look at is database create. Now, database create is going to create the database for us. Now, let's go ahead and see what databases we have right now. So let me just see how can I find that. So I think I can get rid of this, and that. Bootstrap, and let's go ahead and do localhost 8080, not this 180. This is our Symfony built-in server, but this is how to access your actual PHP-MyAdmin server. So I'm going to do PHP-MyAdmin like that. I'm going to hit enter. As you can see, it's going to ask me for the password and the username. I'm going to enter those. I'm going to hit the return key. as you can see, we have our databases right here. Now, as you can see, we have information, MySQL, performance, and sys. Now, how do we create our database that we just configured right here? So how do we create Symfony course? Now, you can just go ahead and create this manually if you want to. Nobody's going to, nobody's going to complain about that. But I like to take full advantage of Symfony. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do PHP bin/console. I'm going to call Doctrine, and I'm going to use database, namespace, and create. And I'm going to hit enter. As you can see, it's going to tell me that this is not allowed to connect to this MySQL server. And one way to fix that would be to search for the answer using Google. So let's go ahead and do that. And as you can see on this page, we're going to scroll down a little bit. And of course, we don't have MySQL installed for the CLI installed. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this command that we have right here, and we're going to run that on our PHP my admin. So I'm going to go to MySQL. This is the database that is causing this. I'm going to go to my SQL right here, and I'm going to paste whatever I copied from the website. I'm going to go and change root to my IP. I'm going to change that to 127.0.0.1.1 until identified by 6 zeros, which is my password, with grant option. I'm gonna hit go and see what's gonna happen. And it seems like I have some sort of mistake. That's because these are not allowed right here. I need to change them to standard code. So I'm gonna hit go again, see what I'm gonna get. So it seems like something happened. I'm gonna go back to my terminal and see what's gonna happen right now. So let me just clear this, and let's do PHP bin/console Doctrine database create. And indeed, it created the database for us. So as you can see, Symfony, Symfony course database was created. Let's go ahead and see if that's correct. I'm going to refresh this. So I'm just zoom in a little bit. I'm going to refresh this. And indeed, as you can see, we have our database right here. Now, we need to create some sort of table. So how do we create a structure that we have right here? Now, what I like to do is create that from Symfony itself. Now, each table right here in your database is represented by, on Symfony side, is represented by something called an entity. Now, an entity is just a regular class that would have some properties. Now, each property, now the class itself is going to be the table, and each property within the class is going to be a field within or a column within your table. So let's go ahead and make a very basic one. Now, obviously, I'm going to take advantage of Symfony, and I'm going to use their console. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do PHP bin/console, and I'm going to use the make command, and I'm going to make an entity. I'm going to hit the return key, and it's going to ask me for the name of the entity that I want to create. Let's say that I want to create something called a post. So we're going to have some posts in our database and all that. So let's create a post. Now it's going to tell me if you want to add some properties to this one. Now, of course, I want to add some stuff. I'm going to add a title. I'm going to add, for example, a description. Now, before I make any further changes, after I create a property, it's going to ask me for the field type. In my case, it's going to be a string, and it's going to be just 255, does not matter. And can this field be null in the database? I'm going to tell it that this cannot be null at the moment, but I can change that later if I want to. So I'm going to hit the return key, and for now, I'm just going to keep the title, and that's it. I don't want to have anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the return key to stop adding fields. And as you can see, we have green, which means that this entity was created. Now you're going to see that this is going to ask you to create a migration. As I said, I don't like using migrations, but they are pretty useful if you want to use them for yourself. You can check the documentation for anything related to migrations. It's pretty easy. They are pretty easy to use. Now let's go ahead and see if we have our class. Now, if we have our table, of course, we don't have anything right now. We still have to migrate everything from Symfony to our database. Now, before we do that, let's take a look at the entity that was created for us, and we have post.php. Now, as I said, this is just a regular class with some annotations. As you can see, it's class, it does not extend anything. And we have this entity, which means that this This is the repository for this class. Now you don't have to worry about the repository. I'm going to explain that when we get to it. And we have some properties. Now, this is the ID for your class. As you see, it has this RM ID, this annotation ID, and its generated value, and it's a column of type integer. So this is where all the types are coming from. We have our title. Now everything needs to have a getter and a setter. As you can see, we have get ID. We don't have a set ID, obviously, because it's auto incremented. And we have get title, and we have set title, which we're going to use to set or get the title, obviously. Now, how do we create this table? How do we migrate this to our database? We have to go back to our terminal, and you can even make a migration if you want to. I'm not going to do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do PHP bin /console, and I'm going to do Doctrine, and not database, but schema. So this is something related to the schema that we are dealing with. Now this is a schema. So this is the schema of our database. This is a table that's within our database. So we're going to use namespace schema. And we have update or create. So if you don't have anything, you can use create, which is going to create the schema for you. Or if you are making updates while you are working on it, you can use the update. Now you can even use updates if you don't have anything and it's still going to work. Now if I do update and I just hit enter, as you can see, it's not gonna tell me anything. It's not gonna tell me that, so it's gonna tell me that you shouldn't use this in production environment, obviously, but it's not going to do anything. It's just gonna ask me to either force this command or use dump SQL to see what's the SQL that is going to be executed. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the SQL. So let's do dump SQL. And as you can see, it's just a regular SQL, like the one you used to write when you were just using SQL in PHP. Now to execute this, what you have to do is not use for dump SQL, but you have to use the flag force. Let's go ahead and do that. As you can see, one query was executed and the database schema was updated. Let's go ahead and take a look at PHPMyAdmin. I'm going to click on the database name. As you can see, we have our table, which is post. Now this is great. We have a post right here. As you can see, this is the structure. This is an ID. This is a primary key, and we have our title right here. Now let's go ahead and see how we can interact with this from our controller. Let's say that within. So let's do something. Let's change our application a little bit. Let's say that inside our custom, when we want to see some, when we go to the page of custom/name, we want to actually persist that user to that name to the database as a post. I know it does not make sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to create post. Let's do create like that. Or you know what? It seems like it's about time to create another controller. So let's go ahead and create another controller so we get more space. Let's do PHP bin /console. Let's make a controller. We're going to call this post controller because it's going to be everything post related in this case. So we're going to do post controller. As you can see, it created that. And one thing you're going to notice that once we install the Twig bundle, it's going to create the controller, and it's going to create the template related to that controller because it knows that you are using Twig or a templating engine. So that's a plus in this case. If I go to templates, you're going to see that we have post, which is related to our post controller. Let's go ahead and open that up. As you can see, this is a place where we're gonna display, for example, all our posts. So what we're gonna do is let's go ahead and let's leave this as it is right now. Let's go ahead and create another action. We're gonna call this create. And in this case, we're gonna need the request because we need some sort of data that we're gonna use. So we're gonna do request like that. And let's take a look at the namespace that we imported. We have nothing, so I'm going to do Alt Enter, and I'm going to import the class HTTP Foundation. Now it's not going to do anything, obviously, because it's empty. So the first thing we need to do is we need to persist an object to our database. Now everything, each row in our database is an object. For example, if we want to create a new post with a title, what you have to do is you have to create a post. So we're going to do new post like this. Now post is this thing inside the entity. So I'm going to do that. Okay, just one. And from post, I can use my getters and setters. So I'm going to use set title, so I can set a title for my post. So I'm going to do set title like this, and this is going to be a title like that. So nothing is going to happen obviously right now. Now, of course, we still need to return. Okay, if I can just return response. Now, in this case, we're going to return a view or something. So we're just going to get to that. We're going to get to that in a second. Now, this is still not a proper action because we forgot one more thing, which is the route. So let's go ahead and set up the route. So obviously, I'm not going to write everything. I'm lazy, so I'm just going to copy this. And we're going to make this /create. Now, actually, I want to make this /post/create because it makes more sense. But one thing that I don't like is repeating myself. I don't want to have /post/create, /post/index, /post/edit. So what you can do is you can set a route for your entire class. It's going to be set as a prefix. So I'm going to copy the same route that I have right there before my class, not before my action or anything, before my class. And I'm going to change that to /post. The name is going to be post dot because I like to separate my names using dot. So this right here is no longer /post. It's /post/post. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of it. So you know what? Let me show you. I know that this looks very abstract to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment whatever I did right here. Let me see if this is perfectly fine. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this route. I'm going to have to create that in a second. There is a command that you can use to debug all your routes. So what you're going to do is you do php bin/console and you use debug route. I'm going to hit enter. As you can see, I'm going to get all the routes that I have set up right now. Now you're going to see that this is post.post and this is /post/post. That's because we are using this prefix right here. So if I change this to /something, just to show you that, I'm going to change this to something. These one are going to change from /post/post to /post/something, and this is going to be post.something. Okay, I'll show you that. As you can see, post.something and /post/something. So let's put this. I'm going to call this index, post.index, and I'm going to call this just / because it's the index within our post route, or if you want to call it like a namespace. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our second one. So I'm going to copy this, as I said, and I'm going to call this create. So let's call this create, and let's give it the name create. And we have the request. Let me just update the doc to get rid of that line. And we have our create. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what we're going to get right here. So I'm going to debug the router again. As you can see, we have /post/create. Now this is going to give us all the posts that we have, and this is going to allow us to create a new post. Now, is this going to be persisted to the database? Absolutely not, because we have no way to tell it that this needs to be sent to the database. So what we need in this case is something called the entity manager. And the entity manager is what actually connects and talks to the database. So how do we get that? We're just gonna call this EM, which stands for entity manager. And we're gonna use this, which refers to our class, and we're gonna get Doctrine, which is a function from this abstract controller that we are extending. Now we are getting Doctrine, but from Doctrine we need the entity manager. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna do get manager like this, and right here we have an entity manager. So how do we use that to persist? Now we're gonna use entity manager, and from that, obviously I said it before, we have persist, which is going to persist and save everything to the database. Let's go ahead and persist that. So we are trying to create this row in our database that is going to be called, that's going to have a title. So one thing that is going to be created right here is an ID of 1 and a title of this one right here. So let's go ahead and do that. So this should do something, and you know what? Let's do something. Let's return a new response. I'm not going to return a view right now. We don't need it. No, as you can see, I imported the wrong namespace. So let me just get rid of this response right here and import the correct one, which is from HTTP Foundation. And what we want to return is just the post was created. And as you're going to see in a second, it's not going to create that post. So let me just update the bug to add a return tag. And let's go back to our application, and we need to access that from post/create. As you can see, it's going to tell me that the post was created, but let's check our database, and it's full of lies. It did not create anything. That's because after you persist, you need to call another function called from the entity manager. Okay, let's go back to the line. You need to call the flush. Now this is just going to construct the insert query. It's not going to actually insert it, but to persist everything and send all the commands to the database, you need to call flush, which is going to actually execute that query that you just created using persist. Now normally you want to call flush after everything. So if you have like multiple commands right here or multiple lines that are going to persist or whatever, you want to call flush after that. You don't have to call flush after each one of persist. Now let's go back and see if our create is going to work. I'm going to refresh. As you can see, it says post was created. Let's go ahead and check if it's lying to us. And it's not lying. It's actually working. As you can see, we have this is going to be a title. We have our record right here. So how do we actually get this? So we just inserted, we just made our first interaction with the database. How do we actually get this value from the database? So we need to have some sort of a way that says, so this is just creating. I want to have something that is going to display the post form. So we're going to set up two things. We are basically making a CRUD right now, a CRUD. And let's go ahead and try to do that. So let's say for our index action, we're going to display all the posts that we have, no pagination whatsoever. We're just going to display all the posts that we have. How do we do that? We're going to create a variable called posts. And from posts, we need to access this. So this is where the repository is going to come in handy. So a repository is just a way for you to manipulate and access your entity. For example, if you want to get all the posts that you have, you're not going to go and do for each post in my entity or whatever. You're just going to call the post repository, and you're going to ask it to get me all the values that I have in my entity, in my post entity. And to access that, you have two ways. You can either come here and use dependency injection and auto wiring. You can do post repository like this and do post repository, and we can just go ahead and do post. Use that value that we just inserted and do find all. Find all is going to get you all the values. We have some functions right there. We have find, which takes the ID. If we want to find just one, we're going to use that in the second action that we're just going to create to display the post. And we have find one by is going to find you one thing, one record by something. For example, if you want to search by the title, you can use find one by the title. We can search for that. We're going to see that in a second if we get to it. And we have find all, which is going to get all the records that we have in the database. And we have find by, which is similar to find one, but it's not going to find you just one. It's going to find you by the title or something, but it's going to get all the records. If you have like 10, it's going to get you 10. Find one by is going to get you only one. Okay, so let's go ahead and use find all. And of course, what we want to do is we want to update the doc to get rid of that message. You don't necessarily need to update the doc. It's not necessary. The only necessary thing is this route right here. So this is necessary. This documentation stuff is not. So how do we know what type of posts that do we have right now? So let's go ahead and dump this and see what we got. So let's dump the posts. And let's see that route. So as I said, route is this one that we have right here. So slash post slash nothing. So let's go ahead and get rid of create and see what we're going to get. Indeed, we got a post. So this is just coming from the view that we just created. You don't have to worry about it. When we created the controller, it created this fancy view for us. But we have our post right here. As you can see, it's an array of posts. But since we have only one post, it's going to give me just an array of one value. So let's go ahead and create another one. Let's just call the create. As you can see, post was created. Let's go back to the index page. As you can see, we have two posts. So it's going to get us all the posts, the posts that we have. Now this is great. By how do we display these right here for the user, so the user can see them in a table or something. Let's go back to our controller. As you can see, we have that view. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this thing that is right here. I'm going to leave the array because I'm going to pass these posts right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a key called posts, and posts like this, which is this variable right here. So I can just get rid of this right now. I don't need it. And now this is going to transfer all the posts that I have right here to my view, which is inside post/index.html. So let's go and take a look at that. Post index.html. As you can see, we have a bunch of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove everything so that you don't get confused. And we're going to start from scratch. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to extend the base.html to .twig. So the layout file, base.html.twig. Now that we have done that, we can go ahead and put everything in our block. So we're going to do block body, and we're going to end the block, and everything that we're going to do is going to be put here. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention is that you can even, since this is only PHP, you can even dump stuff in Twig. So we can do posts like this. And if I refresh this, I'm going to get a dump. As you can see right here, it's dumping that data that I have. Now that is not looking good. So what we need to do is I'm going to need to create some sort of a table to display all my values. And how I'm going to do that, I'm going to start using some functions of Twig. So the first one I'm going to use, so you know what, let's first do a title, the list of all, actually it's H1 is overkill, let's use H2, list of all posts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a table to display all this stuff. So let's do table, and let's give it some bootstrap class. So table is going to be table, and let's do table stripe typing or something like that. Yeah. We're going to use thead, which is going to give us the head. Let's use tr. I think that's probably HTML. So the first thing I'm going to do is display the ID, even though we don't necessarily need that. The second thing is the title. Now, let's get to the important stuff, which is the body. First thing we're going to do is we need to do a tr, which is a row, and we need to do td. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to display an ID right here. Now, this row is going to be repeated several times, so this needs to be within the for each loop. Now, let's go ahead and see how that works. So, twig for each. And as you can see, it does not have a for each, it just have this for user in usage, which looks like a for each and behaves like a for each. So let's go ahead and use that. I don't know if you can see it, but this is what I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to use the syntax to do something. We are not querying, or we are not displaying some value, but we are actually writing syntax. So we're going to do for a post in posts. So for each post inside our post, our posts that we send from here, we want to display those. Now we want to end the block. Obviously, we want to end the for loop. So we're going to do end for like that. Let's do some reformatting, and we have everything ready. So how do we display the ID? Easy. Post is just an object. So what we're going to do is we're going to do post.id, and that is going to give us the ID of that post. The second thing is the title, so let's do post.title. Now let's go ahead and see what we're gonna get. Let me close this, and I'm gonna refresh this. And as you can see, we have a list of all posts, and we have the ID, which is 1 and 2, and the title, which is this. So this is getting me whatever I have in my database. Now I wanna add two things just to make this prettier. So I wanna have something to, so I'm going to create a link that I'm going to click, or actually let's just make this clickable. So whenever I click this, it's going to take me to a page that is going to display this post for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to add something. Let me just remove that. I'm going to add an href link, and I'm going to use, just like before, the path function. I'm going to give it the name. Now we don't have that yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump to our post controller, and I'm going to create a function called display, which is going to, or let's call it show, it doesn't matter, which is going to show the function, to show me the post that I'm asking for. So let's call it post show, and this is going to return. So let's do that right now. Return. You are probably getting familiar with this by now. So we're going to do this render, and we're going to render something. We're going to render something from the post. we're gonna render a view called show.html.twig. Okay, we're gonna need to pass something to that. We're gonna need to pass it the post that we are asking for. So we're gonna do that, post like that, and post. So let me just put a comment here so I don't forget about that. Get create the show view. All right, so we have that. Now what we need to do is we need to get the post. First thing we're gonna do is we need to set up the route. So let's use that. We're gonna do @route, and you are probably getting familiar with this by now. So we're gonna do slash. So this is within /post. We're gonna do /show, but we don't know which one we want to show. So we want to pass the ID of that thing that we are trying to view. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the same syntax as before. We're gonna pass an ID as a parameter, and we're gonna do ID like that. And the second thing we need to pass is the name of that action. This is going to be show. Now, as I said, this is within, everything is prefaced with post, so this is going to be post.show. Okay, so how do we access this ID right here? Well, I showed you one way, which is to use the request, but using the request is overkill in this case. One thing that you can do is just pass the ID like this, and it's going to work. Obviously, let me show you that in action. So let's do post, and you can do post equal. So as I said, you need the entity manager at this point, or you need the repository. So let's take the repository for example. So post repository, and let's do post repository. And you can do this post, okay, post repository, and you can use find because we are passing it the ID. So if we pass the ID like this, let's go ahead and dump and see what we're gonna get. So let's get post like that, and I'm gonna die right after that because I don't have this view created yet. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump and see if that is going to work. So I'm gonna do show slash the ID. Now let's not test it this way. Let's actually go ahead and finish this up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to our post slash index.html.twig, and we need to give it the path. Now the path is going to be post.show. Now we need to pass it a parameter, which is the post ID. How we do that? Easy, just like before. We're gonna pass something that looks like a JavaScript object. We're gonna give it an ID. This name needs to be identical to the name that you entered in your route right here. So we're gonna do ID, and we're gonna give it the post ID. How are we gonna get that? We have it right here. So let's just do post.id. And we need to give it the title. So let's just do post.title, and that is all we need to do to get a proper view. So let me just find the correct keys. If I refresh this, we're going to see these are all going to be actual links. If I click on this, it's going to take me to show 1, which is giving me a title. Now, this is not going to be helpful. Actually, it is going to be helpful. If I go back and I click on the second one, you're going to see the ID is 2. So it's 2 different things. Now, this is great. As you can see, using this in our post controller is nice. But we can even get rid of this line right here and even get rid of all these stuff right here. One thing that you can do is we can use something called the param converter. It's pretty simple. The param converter is the name of the thing, but you can just go ahead and do something like post, just like that. If you inject this post right here, it's going to get the ID, and it's going to look for that post in the post entity, and it's going to give you that. If it cannot find it, it's going to give you an error. So let's go ahead and see if that is going to work. We're going to get the same result. As you can see right here, it's the ID tool. Let's go back, click the first one. It is working. So that's pretty amazing. You can use whatever value you want to search by for here, but this one has to be within the entity itself. So if we want to search by using the title, I can do that. So we have this stuff ready. Let's go ahead and create this view that we need right now. So post, let's go ahead and create this one. Let's do show.html.twig, and just like before, I'm going to extend the base layout. So extend base.html.twig, and let's put everything inside the body block. So we're going to do block body, and we're going to end this. So let's do end block And let's just do something like an H1, and it's going to be, just the title. So I have no idea what to put right now because it's pretty empty. So let's do post.title like that. Let's go ahead and see. Let's refresh this. As you can see, this is going to be a title. We have that indeed. Everything is working fine and as expected. Now, we've done some basic interaction with the database. We can go ahead and let's actually, let's get this database stuff out of the way. So we created something that that is going to help us create. We're still gonna use forms. This is not okay. We are gonna change this to use some forms. And we actually can go now and let's create a remove function before we end this stuff. So we can do a public function. Let's call this remove. And just like before, we need to set a route for this. So this is going to be a route of /delete. So delete like that. And it's going to need what it's going to delete. So we need the ID of the post that we are going to delete. Let's give it a name. Let's call it delete. And just like before, I'm not gonna pass the ID and look for it manually. I'm just gonna inject the post right here. And we need the entity manager to be able to interact with the database and remove this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do em equals this, get Doctrine, and let's get the entity manager, which is get manager. Now we have access to that. What we can do is just do entity manager. We can call the remove function, and we can give it the object that we want to pass. So just like persisting, you need to pass the post or the object that you are trying to persist. Remove works the same thing. You need to pass the remove, the object that you are trying to remove. Now, just like before, it's not going to work like this. You need to call flush after that. And last thing you need to do is just call whatever you want. So basically, after removing something, there's no way to redirect the user unless you accept the index page. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Now, redirecting a user in Symfony is simple. It's actually the same thing as, so basically, each action needs to return a response. And the redirect in Symfony is a response. So let me show you how you can redirect a user within the controller. All you have to do is return. I'm going to use this redirect, which is a function that is coming from this abstract controller. So I'm going to redirect to something. Now I need to generate a URL to be able to go to redirect to that route. So we can use another function called this generate URL, and this takes the route name. So what we're going to pass is the post.index, and the post.index is the name that we have right here. So it's going to redirect us to that place, and we don't have any parameters whatsoever. So let's go ahead and see if this is going to work. Let's go to, okay, so you know what? I think it's pretty much easy to go just to the index, to the post index, and add a remove link right here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to add another thing. You know what? Let's add actions. And right here, let's remove that. So let's create a link that is going to remove that. So we're going to do, so I'm doing something very dangerous right here. I'm accessing that via post, via get. So you don't want to have your access to access your delete method actions using get, because once Google starts crawling your website, everything will be removed. Now what you want to do is change the method. I'm not going to do that just to save some time. That's something that is not necessarily Symfony theme, but it's like a web development thing. So let's just go ahead and keep this simple. So I'm going to call post.delete, and I want to pass it the post ID. So let's give it that same notation as before, post.id, and let's call this delete. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so where's the index? Oh, I need to go to the index of post. Expected name or number. That's obviously because I used a dot inside of a comma. So I need to use a comma here. And let's refresh again. As you can see, we have the delete, which is going to remove that. Actually, let's move that. Let's move that. Class of text danger. And okay, this is more it. So if I click on delete, it is going to remove this and redirect me back to this same page. So I'm going to do that. As you can see, it has removed that. Now we don't have any feed expect this, that it's -1 record. So what we're going to do is let's actually go ahead and create another one, which is going to update. That's not how you expect create. You know what? We can actually go ahead and do something really nice, which is going to be copying this and put it inside the create function. So inside our create function, I'm gonna, instead of returning a plain response, I'm gonna just paste this right here, and it's going to do the same thing. If I go to create, it's going to redirect me right here. Now I want to display some sort of a message when I delete something, and there's something inside Symfony called flash messages. So I'm going to do that for the remove, but you can just go ahead and do that for whatever you like. You can call this add flash, and add flash is just a function that takes advantage of the session to add a message that is going to be displayed just for one single time. The first thing is going to be a string, which is the type for it can be anything. I'm going to do success, and I'm going to call it success. The second thing is the message that you want to display, and I'm going to call this your post was removed. And that's all you have to do to display this message. Now you need to go to the view. I'm going to go to my post/index.html, and I'm going to have to display this somewhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and let me just show you one. So Symfony flash messages. Inside our view, we need just to iterate through all the stuff that we have inside our okay, there it is. This is what I'm talking about. So we're just going to copy this. And basically what this is going to do is going to iterate through all the flash messages that we have, but the name must be identical to this one that we used right here. So I used success. I need to change this from notice to success. And the message is going to be the same. So this is all you have to do right now. Let's go ahead and see if that is going to work. So let's go back to this page, and we are going to try to delete the fourth post. So let's click delete, and as you can see, the post was removed. If I refresh this, as you can see, it's not going to work. Now I was expecting some sort of a flash noise. You know, let's use Bootstrap. Let's do alert success. Okay, is that no? So alert success. Let's try to remove this, and as you can see, post was removed. And if I refresh, that's not going to be there anymore. So that's how you use flash messages. Now, as you remember, everything is static. So when I call create, it's just going to create something that is hard-coded. Now I want to be able to add this manually. And the way to do that is we're going to start using forms, and that's usually what you use to insert some data. So let's go ahead and start talking about forms. So you can have two types of forms in your application. You can have forms that are related to a class directly, and you can even have forms that are not mapped to anything, for example, like a login page or something like that. So let's go ahead and see in the console and see what we have available for the make command. So we're going to do PHP bin/console, and we're going to do make, and we're going to use, so let's just do make. So there's something, if you do make like this, it's going to give you all the available commands within that namespace if you want to. So for example, you're going to see that we have make form. Let's go ahead and use that. Let's do make form, and let's hit return key. As you can see, it's going to ask you to install form validator. So let's go ahead and do that. So we need the form component and the validation component. So let's go ahead and install those. I'm just going to copy and paste that. All right, so this is quite embarrassing for Symfony. As you can see, we have a bug in the latest version. And this bug is not something that I discovered myself. I'm not going to open an issue. Obviously, somebody has already done that. Now, as you can see, the solution to this is to add this requirement to our composer.json file. So let's go ahead and do that and see if it's going to work. And where's my PHP storm? So this is not something related to Symfony. You should never get something like that. So let's go ahead and do composer.json. And by the way, this is probably going to be fixed in in days ago. So it has probably been fixed or something. I don't know. Let's go ahead and add that somewhere like, yeah, let's do that right here. Okay, let's add that. Doesn't matter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do composer update to see what's going to happen. All right, as you can see, that fix is absolutely working. So thanks to this guy, thanks to, let's see, Guillermo, so Gemoroj or Gemoroj, I don't know. Let's put something like there. Let's add a reaction. Okay, so it seems like I cannot do anything. This probably has been closed. But yeah, so this is the beauty of the community of Symfony. It's working like 24/7 a day. So I don't know, 24/7 a day. I don't know what even that means, but they are working hard to fix every single problem in every single bug. So let's go ahead and move on with our life. Let's go ahead and refresh this. As you can see, it is working. So, well, what I was doing, so let me just close this. Yeah, so we were talking about forms. Now let's go back and let's do PHP bin slash console. We're gonna do form. Okay, let's do make form and let's click enter. As you can see, it's gonna ask me to install these stuff. Let's go ahead and do that. Once that is done, we're gonna go back and we're gonna run the command again. So let's go ahead and do make form. As you can see, it's gonna ask me for the class that is going to be used. So the name that is going to be used for that. So one thing that you can do is, so let's call this post type. So let's do post type like that. Let's hit enter. And as you can see, it's going to ask you for the entity or the model class that is going to be used to bound to this form. So this form will be bound to some class, and that class, what is going to be is, in our case, we have post. So let's go ahead and enter that post. As you can see, we have green. So let's go ahead and take inside src form, we have a form. So let's go ahead and see that. As you can see, we have a new folder. We're going to take a look at the post type, and this is what is going to be within that. So we have a bunch of stuff. Now, as you can see, the most important part at this point is the resolver, which sets the defaults to data class, which is post class. It says that the data class for this form is the post. So it's going to be used that. Now, as you can see, it auto detected that I have this title field column in my entity, so it's going to be adding that in my builder. So this is how you add fields to your form. This is how you add inputs to your form. You just have to do a builder, add, and you add whatever you need. So let's go ahead and see how we can use this. Let's go back to our post controller, and within our create, so let's go back to our create function. As you can see, we need to get rid of this, and we need to have a form. So how we can create a form is pretty easy. Now we need some form, so we need a route to display the form. So let's go ahead and render a form or render a view. I'm not even sure what I'm saying at this point. So let's go do return this render. Let's do post and let's do, so this is create.html, so .html.twig. And we're gonna need to pass some parameters. So first, let's go ahead and create the form. So I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to do form. What is that? So I'm going to do form equals, if this is form, I'm going to call this, and we have two options. We have create form, and we have create form builder. Now you want to create form. Create form takes or actually takes two parameters. The first one is the form that I want to use. In my case, it's the post type, which is within app form, this namespace. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to do class, so I can pass the full qualifying namespace for that class. The second thing is the data or the object that this is going to be bound to. So this post object is going to be filled with the data that is going to come from this form once we submit it. So you can either pass null if you don't have any, or you can use post or the object that you have. So we have post, we're going to use that. Now this is going to create a form for us. Let's go ahead and pass that form to view. So as usual, we're going to do that, and we're going to do form like that. Now this is not going to work, as I'm going to show in a second, but first let's go ahead and create this view. So I'm going to copy the name, I'm going to go to post, I'm going to create .html.twig, and let's do the usual stuff. Let's extend the base.html.twig, and let's go ahead and add our body block. So let's do body, and I have some nasty stuff going on right there. So let's do end block, and block, and block. Okay, so we have that. Now let's go ahead and render our form. So render form is pretty easy. All you have to do is call the form function, and pass it the name of the form. So this is the name of the form that is coming from here. Let's go ahead and see what this is going to give us. So let's go to our browser and let's head to the create route. And as you can see, we have some sort of an error. So as you see, insert into, yeah, that's because I've made a mistake. So I need to get rid of this stuff because we shouldn't be inserting right now because we don't have any data. So that's out of the way. Let's go ahead and refresh this. As you can see, argument 1 passed to form render block must be instance of all this stuff. Now this error seems vague and abstract. You don't understand what this. Now basically what it means inside this, we created a form, but we want to create the view for the form so that we can pass it to our view and use it. So what you need to do is on this value, on this form variable that we have, we need to call create view. And that is going to create a view, and that is going to create the form, the proper form that is going to be used. As you can see, we have that right here. So a couple of things that we need. So we have the title, we need the submit button. Now we have two options. You can either add it on the view right here, or you can add it on the type itself. So I like sometimes adding it in the type. It depends. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call something. I'm going to add this and I'm going to call it save. Now the first parameter is the name. The second one is the type. So the type in this case is submit type. Let's just do that again. So submit type. And the namespace is inside Symfony component form core type. I know you can see, but it's core type. So let's just call it enter. Let's do fast. Let me show you that. It's right here. So it's Symfony component form extension core type submit type. So that is the type. The last thing that you want to pass is some options that you can pass to your field. Now it's an array of options. Now let me just show you what I mean. If I refresh this, as you can see, everything is hella ugly. Now this is where we're going to do something in Twig. So in Twig, we want to tell that our entire application is based on Bootstrap. So I want you, whenever you see a form, an input or something, or a label, I want you to use some Bootstrap styling on that. So it's pretty easy to use that. So instead of just having to customize everything and use form group, form controller, and everything, Symfony comes with a predefined thing. If I go to my config in my, okay, so that's inside packages. In twig.yaml, you're going to see that I have some options. One thing I'm going to add is form theme, and I'm going to ask it to use bootstrap underscore for underscore layout .html.twig. Let me just fix this layout like that. Now, if I go back and refresh this, as you can see, it did change this into a proper bootstrap, and I didn't have to write a single line. So that is working perfectly. Now, let's say that I want to apply some custom class or ID to this field right here. So what you can do is you can go to the type. So let's go back to the post type. And in the third array or the third parameter, we're going to pass an array. And within that array, we're going to add a key called attribute. And that attribute is the attributes that you usually see on HTML. So let me just inspect this. It's pretty small. I'm not really sure if you're going to be able to see that. Yeah, can't see that. But as you can see, the ID and the class and all that, you can change those by using this attribute right here. So you can change those attributes. Let's say, for example, that I want to add a pull right to this class. So we can add it right here. So we can do that. Let's do class, and we can do pull right. So it's going to overwrite the existing class. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do btn primary, and I'm going to do pull right. All right, let's do that. And did not work. Well, okay, it says pull right. It's probably something I changed in Bootstrap 4. So I'm still using the 3 syntax. Let me just see. Is it that? No. Let me just. Yep, it has changed. It's called float right. Not up to date, it seems. So I'm going to do float right, and as you can see, it's going to go and jump to that end right there. So that's how you can add custom attributes to your fields. Now, let's say, so we're going to enter something. I'm going to do overseas media. Okay, I'm no longer overseas media. I'm going to do freeCodeCamp. I'm going to hit enter. Nothing is going to happen. Now, the form is being submitted, but we are not handling that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our controller, post controller, and we're going to handle the submission of the form. Now, usually how you do that is pretty easy. You want to have your request right here. So you need to have your request. We're going to do form. We're going to call handle request. If I can just spell form correctly. We're going to call handle request, which is going to handle the request for us. And it's going to get all the specific values that I need. And what we can do is we can check if the form is submitted. So I'm going to do form. If the form is submitted, then I want to do some stuff. That stuff would be, I want to get the entity manager and I want to persist something to the database. Okay, so fair enough, we have that. So if the form is submitted, let's see what we have in our post object. Okay, so let's go ahead and add something. Let's do freeCodeCamp and let's hit enter. As you can see, I'm going to get the post with the ID null. That's because it has not persisted to the database yet, but we get the title, which is freeCodeCamp. Now, at this point, I want to point something out. There, as you can see, this dump is pretty ugly at the top and it's messing with your design. One thing you can do is you can install this profiler. So let's do profiler. And as you can see, we have this web profiler bundle. Let's go ahead and install that. Actually, let's install the profiler. That one seems prettier. So let's go ahead and do like usual, composer require profiler, which is going to use Symfony Flex to install this bundle for us. All right, so it's done, as you can see. And the profiler, if I go back to, I'm going to go back to my application. Let's refresh. Yeah, just resend, it doesn't matter. As you can see, something has changed. So we have this profiler bar at the bottom, but I'm not really sure why it's not displaying the dump at that place. So I'm just going to do that. Let's, what? I'm going to do create. So I was actually expecting to get this dump at the bottom. So is it this one, or did I make a mistake? Should I install this one? I'm just going to try it. Not really sure if I should install it or not. By the way, you can even use rec if you want to. It stands for require. So you can just use that if you want to. So it says that it's already installed the web profiler bundle. So I'm not really sure if that is going to fix it. Yeah, nothing to install or update. It seems like we're just going to have to deal with the ugly design. But it usually should show you a bullseye icon right here. If you hover over that, you're going to get all the dumps that you've got. But it seems like it's not working right now, so let's not bother with that. So we have our form, we have our post. So what we need to do right now is just persist this to the database. So let me just change that ugly to that. So code camp. I'm going to save. And what we need to do right now is just put the code back. So as you can see, just going to persist. We have our entity manager, and we're going to persist and flush. Let me get rid of this message. And what we want to do after we persist is we want to return, obviously. So let's return, and let's redirect to some route. That route would be, let's generate a route first. That is going to be post. Post.index. Yeah, post.index. That's all we need. So if I go ahead and save this, I'm going to hit save. As you can see, it's going to be added to freeCodeCamp, and we can delete it and do whatever we want. So everything at this point is still working. Now everything is working. I think that's pretty much it for forms. So this is the basic functionality of form. This is what you need to know in order to make your first form and make everything working. Now I think we're going to move to, so you can add some validation if you want to. Obviously, I haven't spoken about validation yet, so I haven't talked about it. So you can add some validation inside your entity. For example, if I go to this, I can import assert. So it's constraints. I'm pretty sure it's constraints. So constraints. I think it's validation as assert. So this is what Symfony does, and this is what I do. I like this. So I can assert that something is going to be of a certain type. If I, for example, if I do assert, I can do not blank and not equal to, not null, and this is going to add some validation. And once you have some validation, so for example, if I do not blank, if I add this, one way to check if the form is valid or not is you can add inside our post controller. When we check if the form is submitted, you can do in the form, you can check if the form is valid. So if the form is valid that you have, then you can go do that. If it's not valid that you don't, you can just stop. And you can get the form errors by doing this form get errors. And it's going to get you all the errors that you have in your database in case you wanted to display that to the user and you want to tell it that this field should be of this type and so far. So you get the idea. So I'm just going to get rid of this because we don't have any validation right now, but it's pretty, so that you know that we have validation in Symfony 2. Now, I would like to talk about something important, which is security. So we're going to start talking about security before we move on to, I want to get back to Doctrine and talk about some other stuff because that's like the most important thing, which is interacting with the database. But first, I want to talk about security. So I want to add two things. I want to add a login page and I want to add a registration page where we're going to create a new users. And in Symfony 4, that's pretty easy. So the first thing is we're going to create a login page. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm not really sure what I'm looking at the controller, but we need to go to our console. Let's do PHP bin/console, and let's just see what commands do we have. So if I scroll to the top, actually I'm looking for the make command. Yeah, it's right here. You can see that we have make auth. Now make auth creates a guard authenticator of different flavors. Now I'm not really sure what even different flavors means, but it means that it's going to create something that is going to help me authenticate my users into the applications. Now you're going to notice that we have make auth. Now before you can make auth, we can use make auth, you will need to have a user entity. Our user entity is the entity where all your users will be stored. Now if I just go ahead and try to run that command, I'm going to do make auth. You're going to see that it's going to ask me for the security component. So let's go ahead and install that. All right, so we have that installed. Let's go ahead and run the same command again, php bin/console, make auth. I'm going to hit enter. As you can see, it's gonna tell me what style of authenticator do you want. Do you want a login form or do you want something empty that you can customize later? So I want to take the easier route and I'm going to say that I want a login form authenticator. So I'm just going to hit 1. It's going to tell me the name of the authenticator class, that you want to create. Just enter some name. I'm going to do custom authenticator, if I can just spell that correctly. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to ask me for the controller class. So I'm just going to do security controller and hit enter. It's going to ask me for the user class that you want to authenticate. Now at this point, I have nothing. And that's what I mean by you need to have a user entity before you do that. So one thing that comes with Symfony is, by the way, I pressed Control-C. I just stopped everything that I was doing. So what I'm going to do now is going to do php bin/console, and I'm going to do make, and I'm going to do make user. So that is going to help me. So I'm not going to make an entity and call it user. So I'm going to show you the difference. When I do make user, it's going to ask me for the security class. So obviously I want user. Do you want to store user data in the database using Doctrine? Yes, I want to. Enter the property name that will be unique. So in this case, I'm just going to do email or username. Yeah, let's do username. It's better. Let's use the username. And this app is going to hash the user password. Yes, it's going to hash that. Use alchemy, so let's just use it. And as you can see, we have green. Now, a couple of things that have changed. We have a new entity called user. We have the repository of user. Now, it seems like I forgot to explain the repositories first, but we're going to get to that in Doctrine. We have the entity user updated because it changed some stuff, and we have this configuration security.yaml file that changed. Now let's go ahead and see what happened. If you go back to our config packages, you're going to see that we have security.yaml. If I open that file up, you're going to see that some stuff that were added to this file. They were not here before. So we have the encoders. The encoders, as you can see, is what is going to be used to hash your password. Now, if I do make entity and call it user and just try, create entity that way, I still have to come back to this file and add all this stuff that I have right here. But if I use make user, it's going to add all this stuff. It's going to interactively ask you for this information, and it's going to add it to your security.yaml file, and you don't even have to worry about this. So we have the encoders. As I said, this is the algorithm that is going to be used to hash your password into the database. You can use Argony like this, or you can use bcrypt if you want to. You can use probably other stuff, but I'm not going to bother with that right now. And we have the providers. Now, the providers, of course, for the sake of the beginners course, I'm going to keep it simple. The only provider that I have right now is the database. So you can have an in-memory, you can have an LDAP, you can have whatever you want, but basically I know that most of you are going to be loading users from your database. So we have this provider right here, and the entity that is going to be used is the user entity, and the property that we're going to use to actually call or to search for that user is the username. Now we're going to notice that we have firewalls. So we have dev, which is something for the development environment. It's going to allow you to add some JS and all that. Now these are firewalls. So we have main, and as you can see, it says anonymous true, which means anyone, even if it's not authenticated, because we don't have any authentication right now, is going to be allowed to access this. Now this is going to change in a second. As you can see, the file structure is going to change. Now one thing is access control. Access control is where you want to set up some patterns for your website. For example, let's say that you have an admin dashboard that you want only the users with role admin to be able to access. You can do that right here. And the profile is something, these are just patterns. For example, if I want to deny access to my entire application if you are not authorized, I can do that by just doing this. Using whatever comes after this, it needs to have a role user. And in order to have a role user, you need to authenticate into the web application. Now, we don't even need to take a look at the entity of user because it has some basic stuff like a username, the roles that I was just talking about, the password, and that's it. And of course, the ID. Now, let's go ahead and make our form. So let's go ahead and do PHP bin/console make auth. If I do that and press enter, as you can see, it's going to ask me for the same stuff. I want a login form authenticator, so I'm going to press 1. The return key, the name of the class of the authenticator, I'm going to call it custom authenticator. It seems like I'm losing my mind. And the controller class is going to be security controller. That's fine with me. And as you can see, it did some stuff. It created this custom authenticator within our security directory that was just created right now. It updated the file security.yaml. We have a new controller created, and we have a new template called login.html.twig. So finish the redirect to do in the, we're going to do that in a second. So let's go ahead and see what was created for us. So first, let's take a look at the structure. As I said, the security.yaml file has changed a little bit. As you can see, the guard that is going to be used right now is this one right here. It says the authenticator that is going to be used is the security custom authenticator that we're going to take a look at right now. So let's go ahead and see that. As you can see, we have a new folder within our SRC. We have a folder called security. If I open that up, you're going to see that we have a bunch of stuff that you don't need to worry about. But this stuff is working. Now, the thing that it was telling me to check or to do right here is to change this on authentication success. So basically what it's telling me to do is after the user successfully authenticate, where do you want to send it? Where should I send your users? Where do I want to redirect it? For example, you want to redirect the user to his profile page or to the index page or to his dashboard or whatever. So you can do that right here. I'm not really going to bother with that, so I'm just going to leave it like that. So let's go ahead and see what route was created for us. Let's do PHP. Okay, one more thing that I forgot, obviously, is the security controller. And as you can see, we have the login route right here. The action. So you can, as you can see, I'm not going to go into details, but this is the authentication utils that you can use to get the last authentication error and to get the username of the person that was trying to log in. As you can see, we pass that same data back to the route that was created, to the view that was created for us, which is security login.html.twig. And I want to take a look at the route that was created for us for login. So we're going to do debug router from the console. As you can see, I made some mistakes. So as you can see, a bunch of stuff was added for us. This is specific to the profiler. You don't have to worry about that. But one thing that you're going to notice is we have a new route called upLogin with the name of upLogin, which is xsilver via/login. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So if I go to /login, okay, that's what I tried to do. So login. As you can see, we get a username and a password prompt. So it's going to ask us for that data. So whatever I enter right now, it's not going to work, obviously, because we have nothing. As you can see, it's going to tell me that there was an error when it was trying to go to the database. What we have to do, and I forget to do, is we need to migrate our new user entity to the database. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do PHP, then /console, Doctrine, schema update, and we can do dump SQL. You're going to notice that this is what's going to be executed. It's going to create this table user. Let's go ahead and force that. And as you can see, one query was executed. So let's go back, and I'm going to go back to the page, and I'm going to enter a new set of credentials, even though they are not going to work. I'm going to hit sign in. Username could not be found. Now, as you can see, the username could not be found. That's because I have an empty database right now. Not an empty database, but an empty user entity. User tables. Let's take a look at that. As you can see, user is pretty much empty. Now I can go ahead and try to create something manually and all that, but I'm going to take advantage of this situation so I can create a register page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new controller. I'm going to call it this PHP. I'm going to do PHP bin /console, and I'm going to do make a controller. I'm going to call this register controller. Actually, the registration controller seems better, so let's do that. So registration controller. So it seems like it created that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my editor. I'm going to open up registration controller, and I'm going to create that function. So I'm just going to call this, it seems like it's a lot, registration. So I'm just going to call it register at this point. And this is going to be a register, because index does not make any sense. I'm going to get rid of this controller name variable, and I'm going to go ahead and start making a form. Now, this is what I'm going to show you how you can make a form for your user using inside the controller. Now, I actually don't recommend ever using this, but I'm just going to show you this just for the sake of the video. So we can do form equals this, create form builder. So let's do create form builder. And create form builder takes some data, or it can take nothing. So in this case, I'm gonna add nothing. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some fields. So the first field I'm gonna add is gonna be called username. I'm gonna keep this pretty simple. The second field I'm gonna add, and by the way, if you don't enter any type, any second parameter type, which is the type, is going to default to a string, to an input of type string. Text. So the second thing we need is the password. So I'm going to do password like this, and I'm going to go ahead, and this is not going to be a password type. As you can see, this is a password. Of course, password type is going to work, but we need two values of that. So we cannot actually just do password and then repeat password after that. What we need to do is we need to use something called repeated. So let's just do repeated. Seems like I'm not spelled correctly today, so I'm going to use the repeated type class, and this one takes a couple of options that I actually don't remember. So what we need to do is we need to actually go and check the documentation for that. So let's go ahead and Google that stuff up. So let's do what am I doing? So I'm going to do Symfony repeated type, and that should be somewhere around here. So I just need to look at it. So as you can see, this is the type. So we're going to specify a type, which is going to be a password type. So let's just copy that. Let's go back to our editor, and let's paste that right here. So we have a password type. Let's not forget to import the namespace. I'm going to import the class. And you can have, this is something that a lot of people have been asking for. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the required true. Does not matter if you add it or not. But we need the first option to have a label of password, and the second is to repeat password or confirm password. So this is something that I've got a lot of questions about when I made some previous videos about this stuff, but it seems like nobody has went to check the documentation. So anyways, we have that. Now let's go ahead and send that form to the actual view. Now, before we do that, this is a create form builder. So this is form, as of now, it's just a form builder. To get the form out of that, we need to do get form. we need to call get form after everything. So get form, at this point, this is going to be a form, but we still need to call the create form, create view on that. We're going to do form create view in order to be able to use that in the index.html within our registration. So let's go ahead and open that up. I'm going to get rid of everything. Actually, I'm just going to get rid of all this stuff here. Let's do like we used to do. Okay, something weird is happening. Okay, it's not happening anymore. So let's do a block. And let's end the block. And at this point, I can just go ahead and do form. If I can just spell form correctly. So let's do form like that. And let's go ahead and see what we missed. So at this point, what I'm going to do, I still have to actually, handle the form and everything, but I just want to see this stuff working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head to my register. As you can see, I have a username and a password and confirm password. I still need a button, so I'm going to go ahead and create that within our type. I'm going to do add. Let's do submit. Let's call it submit. Let's call it register. Why not? This is going to be a submit type. And let's give it that. And do we want to pass some options? Yeah, let's do that just for the sake of the video. So as we said, you can pass some attributes. I want to change the class. Okay, not that. I want this to be an array, and I can change the class by doing something like that. So btn primary, and I can say actually it's float right since I'm using Symfony 4, and actually I want this to be success. I want this to be a green button, so let's go ahead and do that. We have our registered button, so if we try to do something, nothing is going to happen, obviously, because we still need to handle that. So let's do form, and let's handle the request, and we don't have any request. So let's go ahead and inject that in our register function. So let's do request. I forgot to import the namespace. So HTTP foundation request. Let's go ahead and pass this right here. And as usual, we need to handle the form. We need to check is submitted. So if it's submitted, if the form type was sent using post, then we want to do some stuff. Stuff we want to do is we want to get so we need to do this get doctrine. Let's get manager. And we want to do entity manager. We want to persist some user that we're going to create in a second. So we're going to do persist, and we're going to create a user in a second. So don't worry about that. So I'm going to do flush. So where are we going to get this user from? Now this is not going to be mapped to any form of class, to any entity that we have, because nothing has password and a button and a repeated type. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually, I want to show you how you can get the data from the request and from the form. So let's go ahead and do user equals new user like that. The namespace is app entity. And let's dump the user. So I'm not going to dump the user, actually. I want to dump the form. And there's something that you can use to get some data from the form. What you can use is data equals form get data. What a surprise. So let's do data like that and see what we have when we submit the data. So as you can see, we're going to enter some username, some password, some confirm password. I'm going to register. As you can see, I'm going to get an array of username and password. Now, the username is not hashed or whatever. So it seems like it's trying to insert. Yeah. So this doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the username and I'm going to tell you the password, but the password needs to be hashed. So the password needs to be encrypted before it will encoded or encrypted or hashed, whatever you want to call it, before it's persisted into the database. So what we're going to do is we're going to call something that is going to help us do that. And that thing is the password encoder. So it's actually user password encoder interface. So user password encoder interface and password encoder. Now, by the way, this is why you might be wondering how does this thing work? This is called auto-wiring, and it uses dependency injection. It knows that you are asking for this, so it's going to inject it to your function so that you can use it. So that's a Symfony thing. Now, as I said, we need to actually go ahead and encode the password before we can send it to the user. Now, how do we do that? So we have access to the username and the password from the data. It's just an array, as you can see. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to leave that. Actually, I'm going to change that to user. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do user, and I'm going to set the username. So set username. I'm going to set the username to the data, and I'm going to try to get the username from that. The second thing is the password. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do set password, and as I said, I need to encode the password before I can use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the password encoder interface. So password encoder. So what is that? Password encoder, and I'm gonna call the encode password on that. And as you can see, that takes two functions, not two functions. That takes two parameters. The first one is the user that you are trying to hash. I have that right here, so I'm gonna pass that. The second thing is the plain text password that you are trying to hash or encode. So what we're going to do is we're going to call data. We're going to get the password from that. And that's pretty much all we need to do to be able to hash the user. Now I'm going to put one small die. Actually, I'm not going to die. I'm just going to, you know what? Let's just redirect to the login page without any messages right now, because we know how to use that. So let's do this redirect. And this is going to take us to the, actually, let's generate a route. URL. Let's do login. Actually, it's app login or login. Just see, it's app login. So let's do app login. And that is going to take us to the page right after we register the new user. So let's go ahead and see if that is going to work. So I'm going to go back to the register page. I'm going to create a username with the name admin. I'm going to call the password. I'm going to put the password will be admin and admin. Actually, let's use 6 zeros. And I'm going to hit register. So as you can see, I'm at the login page, and let's see if we have a new user. So I'm going to hit browse. It seems like I have a new user. I don't have any roles right now. That's something that we're going to discuss in a second. But you can see we have some password right here. It's a password that does not match 6 zeros that I entered. That's because it's hashed. Now let's go ahead and try to log into our application. So I'm going to do 6 zeros, and I'm going to hit sign in. As you can see, I am authenticated anonymously, so logged in as anon. So I'm going to hit sign in, and as you can see, I need to provide a redirect inside this function. Now, this is not an actual error. This is just something that I was talking about that I forgot to do right here. It's asking me to handle this stuff right here. So we can do something. We can I don't know. You can do whatever you want. I'm not going to bother really with this right now. You can redirect if you want to. So let's see if we can redirect. So where's the constructor? Do we have a URL generator interface? Yeah, it seems like we have that, so we can use that. Let's see, do we have any redirection that we can steal? It seems like we don't have. Let's just write that. So we're going to do return new redirect response. Now this needs to redirect response is just something that inherits from a response. So we're going to use that, and we need to generate a URL. So for example, it seems like we already have that. I just didn't see it. So let's go ahead and steal this. And where do we want to go? We want to go probably to the post.index right after we do that. So I'm going to refresh. As you can see, I'm going to resend, and it's going to redirect me to that. Let's go ahead now and see what we have right here. As you can see, I'm logged in as an admin. I'm no longer nobody. I'm an admin, a user. And I'm authenticated through this firewall, which has the name main. Now we have done most of the stuff. Now, one thing that I want to do before we end up the security stuff. Now, I'm not going to talk about, obviously, I'm not going to talk about security a lot because that's a vast and a very big topic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it really simple. We have a login page, and we have a registration page. What I want to do is want to deny access to some places. So what you can do, as you can see, we don't have anywhere, and we don't have a logout URL anywhere. So what I want to do is let's go ahead and I want to show you that in the documentation. So let's do let's do Symfony logout. So let's do login form. All right, I finally found it. It's inside the security page on the Symfony docs. As you can see, logging out is pretty simple. All you have to do is put this under the main firewall that you have, log out, and the path is going to be that. So Yeah, of course you have to create that, but yeah, what am I talking about? So let me just go ahead and go back to the security.yaml file, and under the firewall, I'm going to do this after. Okay, I'm supposed to mess with that. I'm going to put the logout right here, and this, I need to fix the indentation. As you can see, it says app logout. Now, this name does not exist yet, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the security controller, and I'm going to create that right here. So I'm going to do public function logout, and this does not take anything, and it can be empty, so nobody's going to care about that. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to call this logout, and let's change this to logout to match the name that we just entered right there. So if I go back to my terminal and I try to debug the router, as you can see, I have a logout route right here, and what I can do right now is I can go back to my layout, for example, base.html.twig. Now, one thing that you're going to notice, let me just, I hate when I start doing this. So let's just go and do this right here. So can I do float right here? So float right. And let's try. So we're going to generate a URL. So this does not have any parameters, but we're going to do path /logout. Let's do app logout like that. And this is going to be not greeting bookcard, but we're gonna log out. Let's go ahead and refresh our page and see what we're gonna get. As you can see, we have a logout right here. Now, if I go back to my profiler, as you can see, right after I add that logout, the logout controller or action, you're gonna see that we have access to that. So we can either click on this or that to log out. Now, as you can see, I still have access. If I go back to post/index, I still have access to this. I want to deny access to this. I don't want the user to be authenticated. I want the user to be logged in order to be able to see this page. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our security.yaml, and we're going to start taking advantage of the access control. Now what we're going to do is we need to set up two things. Now the first thing is the login page. So the login page needs to be accessed by people who are not authenticated. So what you need to do is roles, you need to change that to is authenticated anonymously. So anonymously, hopefully I wrote that right. So the login page, you don't have to be logged in to be able to log in. So that does not make any sense. So you have to set this before actually setting the wildcard. Now this is very important. This will not work, but this will work. Okay, so pay attention to the order of the patterns. So let's go ahead and see if that is going to work. So I am not logged in. As you can see, I am anonymously logged in. So I'm going to refresh this. As you can see, it's going to take me to the login page. It's going to ask me to sign in. Let's go ahead and sign in. Okay, I'm messing this up. So sign in. As you can see, I am now authenticated and I can see my page. So I can do whatever I want right now. And this is going to be a title, whatever. So it seems like that is almost, yeah, let's do one more thing. So, okay, so let me see. So we can do one more thing. So within our application, let's say that let's say that the login page, as you can see, the login page has access to this logout. Now this logout actually makes no sense. Why can I log out when I am already logged out? So let's add inside our base.layout.html condition that is going to check if the user is logged in or not before we can actually display this. So let's go to our base.html.twig. And where's that? Base.html.twig. And the logout, we don't want to do this unless we are not logged in. So there are a couple of ways that you can check if you are logged in. So let's go back and see some of the stuff in the documentation. So I'm going to look for is granted. So as you can see, you can check if the user is granted using that. So, and we have something is granted in the template. So for example, if you want to check the role of the user, so you can do that. So let me just copy that line. Let's do an if. Basically, this is going to check if the user is an admin or if it's a user, it's not going to display this, but that's not what I want. I want to check if the user is logged in. So what I can do is check if the user is authenticated, not anonymously, but fully. So the user is fully authenticated, then I want to display this logout route. Let's go ahead and see if that is going to work. So I'm not logged in. As you can see, I'm anonymously logged in. I have logout, so I'm going to refresh. As you can see, it's gone. So let's go ahead and see if it is going to be there when I log in. Okay, credentials, what's that? As you can see, I have logged out, and that is working perfectly fine. So that is what I want, or that's what I wanted to cover basically for security and all that. Now, one more thing I'm going to do before I move on. Actually, not. So that's basically all I wanted to cover for security at this point. What we're going to do right now is I want to jump back to Doctrine. And in Doctrine, I want to explain some stuff. So basically, as I said, our post has absolutely nothing right now except for a title and nothing else. So what I'm going to do is I want to actually change that to, so I want each post to have an image related to it. So what we're going to do, maybe a category as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how you can add an image, and then we're going to discuss how you can we're going to create a relationship. So this is something that is quite related to file uploads, which is a common topic between developers. Everybody wants to upload images because why not? So what we're going to do is we're going to change our stuff a little bit. So we're going to change our entity. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and add to our post.php, we're going to add the image that we are trying to access, or we are trying to upload. So we need to save that somewhere. Now in our database, we're not going to save the actual image. We're just going to save the path to the image. We want to save that on the public folder on our server. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this image, just like that. I'm going to give it a couple of stuff. I want this to be an ORM. Column is going to be, no, not that. So column is going to be of type string. The length is going to be necessarily not long, so I'm just going to do 100. And that's all I need to do. Now, as I said, each property needs a getter and a setter. So what I need to do right now is I need to create the getters and setters. Now I can go ahead and create them manually, but let's say that I just created 10 new properties. What you want to do is you want to take advantage of the console again. So if I do php bin/console and I do make entity, like this, make entity, if I add the flag regenerate after that, it's going to go through all these and try to regenerate if anything is missing. As you can see, it's going to ask you for the namespace to regenerate. I want to regenerate all the entities. What it's going to do is going to leave the ones that are not untouched. So it's not going to touch anything that it's not supposed to touch, but it's going to update whatever it needs. So if I go back to post.php, as you're going to see, the image now has a get and a set image. So we have some accessors for that. Now, let's go ahead and see how we can actually handle the file upload. Now, before we do that, we need to go back to our form, so our post form, and we need to add something that is going to upload the file for us. We need a field where we can select the file that we're trying to upload. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an image. And that image is, notice how the same name that I have right here is the same that I have right here. But I'm not going to use that actually. As I said, this is going to be a file type. So a file type, file type, which is inside the same Symfony component form extensions core type. And I'm going to do class. And after that, so let me just show you one thing. So if I just leave it like this and I go back, /create, it's post create, not that. It's post/create. As you can see, I'm going to get the image and everything is working fine. But if I change the name, so let's say that this is, so I want to call it attachment instead of image. If I do that, you're going to get that neither the attachment nor the property nor the method get attachment is attachment, whatever is inside this. So you might actually want to do something like this, where you have a different name in your form than the one that you're going to use in your entity. So what you want to do in that case is you want to tell it that this field right here is not related to anything in the database or the entity. So what you want to do is you want to pass in the array, and within that you're going to pass map to false. Actually, I'm not really sure if it's mapped or mapped by. And I'm going to try mapped. And okay, what's that? Oh, that's my bad. Should be a comma there, right there. Actually. And as you can see, it is working. It's mapped set to false, and it's working because this is not going to be persisted. This attachment field is not going to be persisted anywhere or related to our entity. So we can select a file and do whatever, but it's not going to work as of now. It seems like we have some sort of a bug. It's not appearing there. It's not showing anything. So what we need to do right now is we need to go back to our controller and handle the file upload. So let's go back to our post controller, and within this we have some stuff. So let's go in. What I want to do is I want to dump, not the form, but I want to dump the request. I want to check the file. So inside the request we have a files property bag, or an array that is going to be filled with files that are sent from the client. So that's what I want to take a look at. I'm going to enter some title, and I'm going to choose some file. I'm going to hit save. And as you can see, I'm going to get a file back. So do not worry about this. The image still needs some value. We're going to add that in a second. As you can see, the file bag parameters post. This is the form. And as you can see within that, actually not the form. Oh, actually this form. So within that, we have the attachment, which is the file that we are looking for. So what we're going to do to get access to that is from files, we need to do get what? Get the same name that we used. Okay, so let's find the post type. We need to get the same name that we used right here. So we're going to do get attachment, and I'm going to I'm going to just save that in a file just to save me some space. So type in, and what I want to do is I want to check if I have the file before I upload it. Okay. Now, if I have a file, if the user actually sent a file, what I want to do is I want to save that file somewhere. Now, before you can save that file, we actually need a file name for that. Now, I can just go ahead and use the same file name that the user sent, but that is probably going to cause some problems and conflicts if two images have the same name. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to generate a unique file name for each of my files. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this this variable called file name, and I'm going to use md5, and I'm going to combine it with unique ID to generate some unique file name for my file. I'm going to concatenate this with something which is the extension. So this is going to be the file name plus the extension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call file, and I'm going to do get. So it seems like one thing about PHP Storm is that it can help you if you add the proper types to the files as a comment. So I can do uploaded file like that, and it's going to give me some functions. As you can see, guest client extension, which I'm going to use to get the client extension. Now we have a file name. What we need to do next is we need to actually move this file to somewhere. So it's not being saved anywhere. So what I want to do is I want to save this inside my public folder, which is the folder that is publicly accessed to anyone that is visiting my site. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually need to do is file. I need to move this file somewhere. So I'm going to call the move, and the move takes two parameters. The first, as you're going to see, is the directory where I want to move the file, and the second thing is the file name. So this is going to be, we're going to do this to do get target directory, for example, and the second thing is going to be the file name. So we need to give it a file name to start in some place. Now, how do we get a target directory? Now we can just go ahead and hard code it right here if you want to, but I'm not really a big fan of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my config files. I'm going to look for framework.yaml, and as you can see, actually that's not, I think it's services.yaml. Yeah, services.yaml. We have some parameters that you can define. You have this local, which is something related to translation, which is not something we're going to cover in this video. But we can create our own. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one called uploads directory, and this can take whatever value you want to give. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to give me the project directory that I'm currently in, and I want you to concatenate that with public/uploads, and this means that all my files, my uploads, are going to be stored in the public folder in the uploads directory that I just mentioned right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my post controller, and I need some way to get that value. And of course, there is a way to get that value. What I'm going to do is, since I'm inside the controller, I can do this get parameter. If I can just spell get parameter, and I can give it the name, and the name needs to be the same as the one that I used right here. So I'm going to do that. Space, let's put a comma there, and yeah, that's pretty much all we need to do to move the file. Now we move the file, we need to do one more thing. We need to actually we need to actually set the file name to our database so that it would be saved. So what we're going to do is we're going to do post set image, and we're going to do file name, and we have access to that right away. So what we're going to do next is actually, let me just think about it for a second. It seems like this is going to work, so you know what? The best way to check if this is going to work is by actually trying it. So let's go ahead and get rid of all this dumps that I have. Seems like I have nothing, so let me just go back right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do post with image, and the attachment we're going to select is just some, let's do this for example. I'm going to hit save, and as you can see, it's telling me that an exception occurred while inserting into post title image values, post image, and null. So it says that it does not know what an image is. That's because I once again forgot to migrate my changes to the database. So let's do php bin /console, and let's do Doctrine schema update force. I'm not going to do dump because I know what it's going to do. As you can see, one query was executed, so I'm going to go back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control R, and I'm going to resend all the data that I just sent. And I have the same error. So it says that the image cannot be null, and I have made a mistake somewhere. So let me just think about this for a second. I'm going to try to move these. Probably it's not even going into this condition right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that, and I'm going to just resend again just to check. So it seems like we don't have a file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do dump. Yeah, and that's obviously because I messed this thing up. So what I need to do is I actually need to get post, and post is an array, and I need to get the attachment. I believe so. So let's just go ahead and see if that is going to work. So let's go back to create, and let's do post with image. I can just spell that in. Come on. The attachment is going to be somewhere from, yeah, let's just get something nature. I don't want to get one. Let's get this. Save. And it did something. So it did something. We have something. Let's go ahead and see if the file is uploaded indeed, or I'm just lying. So where's the public folder? It seems like it created a new uploads directory, and within that we have the file that we just asked for. Now it's working properly. Let's take a look at the database. In our post, as you can see, we have the image file name right here. So how do we display that? So what we're going to do is inside here, actually not here. So when we try to view an image, when we show a post, I want to display the image as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Now we don't need to change anything in our controllers whatsoever. What we need to do is we need to go to our templates in the post show, because we already have access to the post. What we're going to do is we're going to add the image, and we want to put the src right here. So if I do just post.image, as you're going to see, it's not going to give us anything. Because if I take a look at this, it's going to give me, so I'm sorry for the relatively small text. It's like I cannot find my image. As you can see, I have an image, but this is not the correct directory that I need. I need to get that from the /uploads/file name. So how to do that? We can concatenate right here by doing something like this. So we're going to do uploads / and I'm going to use / at the beginning, because why not? And I'm going to concatenate this using a hyphen or a tilde, or I think this is a tilde. Yeah, this is a tilde, which is going to concatenate these two for me. So I'm going to go back and refresh. As you can see, I'm going to get my image. So this is how we can get an image. Now, I want to create a category for each post. How do we do that? It's pretty easy. What we're going to do is we're going to create an entity. So we're going to start talking about relationships right now. We're going to go and cover the most basic relationship that you can imagine. And you can actually go ahead and, you can start experimenting with that if you want to do something more complicated. So what we're going to do, as I said, we're going to use categories for each of our posts. So what we're going to do is we're going to generate an entity. It's going to be called category. So let's do PHP bin/console and make an entity. And we're going to call this category, obviously. So let's do category, and we want to add some properties. The first one is going to be, I don't know, it's going to be name. Yeah, let's just do name, and let's just keep it name for now, and that's all we're gonna need. We don't need anything else. As you can see, we have category.php and we have post.php. How do we create the relationship between those? Now the relationship that we're gonna create is gonna be called a many-to-one and a one-to-many relationship. Now each one of our posts have one category, belongs to one category. And categories has many posts, so each category can belong to many posts. So the relationship that we're going to create is, obviously, we're going to need to create a private key because we need a property for this. We're going to call this, so we are inside the post.php, so we're going to create the category relationship first. So let's do category, and this is where things is changing a little bit. So we're not going to use column like this. What we're going to do, we're going to do rm, and we're going to do the type of relationship that we want. So we said each one of our posts has, so many posts have one category, and one category has many posts. So let's do, it's going to be many-to-one, and it takes two main important things. The first one is the target entity. The target entity is the one that we are trying to make the relationship with. In our case is the category. So let's do that. The second parameter is going to be mapped or inversed by. Now, one thing very simple to keep in mind when you are doing something like this is inversed by and mapped by. You want to use inversed by on the table that is going to be holding the foreign key. Okay, just remember it this way if you cannot make sense of anything. Inversed by is going to be, you should use inversed by on the entity that is going to be holding the foreign key. Now, in our case, the table that is going to be holding the foreign key to the category is obviously the post. So what we're going to do is we're going to do inversed by. If I can just spell inversed by correctly, then we can move on. Inversed by, we're going to do by category. Now, this category that we have, right, actually not category, but by post. Yeah, by post. So this post that we created right here is going to be something that we would create. It's a property like this that we're going to create in our category.php. So let's go ahead and do that. Just like the other class, we need to create a post relationship. So we're going to create a property which is going to, which is a relationship between, which is going to relate to the post. I'm not sure how to say that. Let's do rm, and we're going to do, as I said, one to many. So one category belongs to, can be on many posts. So one to many, just like before, the target entity would be the post, and is going to be mapped by because the foreign key would be on the other table. So we're going to do mapped by, well, what's the name of that? It's category. We're going to hit enter, and as you can see, we need, so this is the basic stuff that you need to generate a basic relationship. What we need to do right now is to generate some getters and setters for our post and for our category properties that we just created. So you can go ahead and do them by hand if you want to, but I'm not going to bother. I'm going to do PHP bin/console. I'm going to use the make command again, make entity, not make command, make entity, and I'm going to regenerate. And as you're going to notice, it's going to generate some stuff. So I'm going to press enter. As you can see, it's updated both of my classes, both post and category. And the type that is just created, the amount of getters and setters that is just created for a category is going to be much different and a lot. As you can see, it's going to be adding posts to an array collection that we have right here, and it's going to be removing that as well from that. So that's how you set up a real basic relationship. Now let's go ahead and see what is going to happen if I just try to create something. So if I do create, as you can see, nothing is changing. But I want to have a field right here that is going to allow me to select which category this post belongs to. what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our post type, and we're going to add a key right here. So we're going to add a field, not a key. A field is going to be called. Now I'm going to put this as the namespace as, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm saying right now. I'm going to use the same name that I used for in my post.php, which is category. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to name this category. Now this is the part that is going to be different. We're going to be using an entity type. Let's see what that looks like. So we're going to be using entity type. Please pay attention to the namespace. So entity type. And if we do it just like this, it's not going to work. Obviously, it's going to throw an error. It's going to tell you that we need a class option, which is missing. So we need to pass the array of options, and we need to specify the class. And the class, in this case, would be I want you to load all the categories that you have in my database into this place. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do category like this, and it's from the entity namespace, and we're going to do class, and we're going to go ahead and refresh. As you're going to see, it's not going to work, obviously, because once more I forgot to actually migrate everything to the database. So let's go ahead and do that again. PHP make, not make, but Doctrine schema update false. I'm going to hit enter. As you can see, 4 queries were executed this time. So if I refresh this, as you can see, I get a list of categories which is empty right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to my database. I'm going to just go ahead and create something. So where's my table? Here, there's my table. So I'm just going to go ahead and add like 2 useless queries, categories that we just for the sake of demonstration. So let's insert something. Let's call this clothes and dev. So clothes and dev, 2 things that are related. And we have those. So what we're going to do right now, let's go ahead and see if this is going to be filled. Okay, so we have an error, and that's because we actually have some data. Now, what it was trying to do is it was trying to access, it seems like I might go back. The list that it was trying to generate, it was generating this list right here, this drop down, based on the category. Now, the category itself is just an object, and it does not know how to render an object as a text. So what we need to do is we need to go to category.php, and we need to implement a magic function called toString, which is going to be called whenever the actual code does not know how to turn your object into a string. And basically what we want to put in this case is we just want to return the name of the category. So what we're going to do is this, and give me the name, like that. So let's go ahead and refresh, and that is hopefully going to solve our problem. So as you can see, if I refresh that, I'm going to get 2 categories right here. Now let's go ahead and try to create something. Let's do new post with category. If I can just spell something correctly instead, that would be amazing. Let's put some image. Yeah, let's just use that, doesn't matter. Just close this, and let's hit save. And as you can see, something happened. So this says a new post with category. I'm going to go check that out. As you can see, if I go back to my post, you're going to notice that I have a category of 1. So how do we display the category again? Let's go back to our show function to display that. So I'm going to go to post show.html, and so we already have access to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this em, and I'm going to do post.category. Now, if I do post.category, it's going to work. That's because, okay, this is messed up, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So let me just do this. This is the category that we just have, and it does know how to render an object into a string because we just implemented that function. But we still have access to the entire object. For example, if I want to get the ID of the category, I can do post.category.id. That is going to give me the ID of 1, which I can use probably to generate some URL if I want to, or something else. So that's probably going to cover this part of the application, which is simple relationships. Now, one thing that I want to do, let's say, for example, that I want a single query that is going to generate some, not generate, but is going to get me everything that I need. For example, the title, the category on a single object. For example, in this case, as you can see, I have to go post.title, I have to go post.category.id to get the ID. What if I want to use something that is going to get me the title in the post ID without having to go through post.category.id? Because this could get really messy if you have like really complicated relationships. So what we're going to do in this case is we're going to go ahead and take a look at the repository. So the repository that I was avoiding since the beginning is just something. So each entity in your application has a repository. And within that repository, what you can do is you can create custom queries and custom functions that you can use to query your database. So for example, in our case, category repository, post repository, what I want to do is I want to create a new function. Now you have access to the find all and all that because we are extending some stuff. But you can actually, as you can see right here, we have the find one bind, find all, find by. But we actually can make our own. So let's go ahead and create something. We can do public function, and let's do find by custom, just to show you that find by, I don't know. So find by something. Let's call it custom. It's really hard to name stuff right now. And this is, you know what? Let's call it find by find post with category. If I can just spell categories correctly, that would be amazing. And I'm gonna pass it an int, which is going to be the ID of the post. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually use the query builder in this case. Now what I'm gonna do is I need to create a query builder. In a query builder, the way to create that is just do this, create query builder. We need to give it an alias, and that alias would be a string. And in my case, since I am using post, I'm going to use p. Okay, well, what I'm going to do next is, let's set for this. What I'm going to do next is I need to do query builder and add a select. So if I can just spell query builder, and I'm going to select. So what do I want to select? I want to select a couple of stuff. First, I want to select the title. So how do I select the title? I'm going to do p.title, which is going to give me the title. Now I'm going to keep this pretty simple. I'm going to leave it like this. And one more thing that I have to do is I have to add a where clause because I want to search by the ID. And what I'm going to do, obviously, is I'm just going to go ahead and do where like this. And it's going to take p.id, and I can just use even p if I want to, but I'm going to do p.id. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to see in a second. And the second parameter is what we're going to, what this needs to match. Or actually, I think we can just do something like this. So I think we can just go ahead and do the ID like that. And then we can go ahead and set the parameter. So maybe we can do set parameter like that. And we can give it the ID. So for example, if I'm using ID right here, I can give it the key is ID, and the value is ID right there, which is going to be passed from here. Now, let's return something. We're going to return the query builder, but we are not going to return the query builder like that because it's a query builder. It's not a result or something. What we're going to do is we're going to call get query, which is going to get the query first, and then from that we want to get result. And that's how we get actually result from that, and not just by call returning the query builder. So let's go ahead and see if this is going to work. I'm going to go back to my show because that's what I'm going to experiment the most. So let's go to our post controller and our show action. So our show like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this and I'm going to put back my ID. That's because I'm lazy and all that. So what I'm going to do is repository, and I want to have access to the repository. Now let's do post equal the post repository. I can just continue typing post repository. I want to find post with category by. So I have access to that function that I just created. It's going to ask me for some ID, which I have right here. I'm just going to pass that like that, and I think we are ready to dump this post and see what we're going to get. So let's go ahead and refresh this page. All right, so we have an array, as you can see right here, the title. As you can see, the data right now is is an array. It's no longer a post. That's because I'm returning something custom. Now, let's go back to our find post and do some more. As we said, we want the category. So how do we return the category with that? First thing we need to do is we need to add a select. Now we need access to, we cannot just do p.category like this. I mean, it's not going to work. As you can see, it's going to get an invalid path expression. What we need to do is we need to join both classes, and then we can access that property. And how to do that is pretty easy. What you have to do is inner join, and from the p.category, and this is pretty amazing about Symfony, I like this, p.category, we need to give an alias to the class that we're going to use. It's going to be, so category is going to be C, and this is all we have to do right now. So what we can do is just go ahead and do C.category or .name, because inside the category we have the name. If I go ahead and refresh this, as you're going to see, I'm going to get an array of two values. The first one is going to be the new, first one is going to be the title of the post, and then we're going to get the name of the category right there. And we can even get other stuff. So for example, I can add select, and I can get the c.id, which is the category.id, and I can even get the post.id. So add select, we can add p.id, and that is going to give me the ID, as you can see. Now we have a problem. You're going to notice that we have the title, the ID is just one, but I asked for both the category ID and the post ID. And it's going to only get me one because it's going to get confused. As you can see, this is the eighth post, so it's getting me just one, which is the category for the ID. Now what you want to do in this case is you want to give them some aliases. And add select, what's that? And as in add select, what I want to do is I want to give this an alias. So this is going to be as a title ID like that, and the category is going to be as category ID. So I can just do cat ID because I'm lazy. And as you can see right now, it's not going to have any problems. The title ID, this is not the title ID, this is the post ID. Somebody probably was screaming at the screen while I was doing that. Screaming at screen while I was doing that. Doesn't matter. So we have title, post ID, the name, and the category ID. So that's how you can create a custom query builder, and that's what the repository is for. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be using that because it's going to require me to change my view, and I don't want to do that because I'm lazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep everything as it was, and that's how you can use a custom query. Now, I want to talk about one more thing before I end this, and that is going to be services. Now, services are something that you're going to be hearing a lot when you are dealing with Symfony. And basically, everything in Symfony is a service. For example, this is a service. So if you remember from the password, so where's the registration controller? As you can see, this is a service that we just use to encode the password. A service is just some class that you're going to create and you're going to call somewhere to help you do something. Now, as I said, Symfony is full of services. Everything inside Symfony is a service. And all these services that within Symfony lives inside something called the container. And the container is just a big, massive object of basket of objects that contain whatever you're going to need. You can actually go ahead and take a look of all these services that you have inside Symfony by running the composer, but the console, and do debug container. If I do that and just hit enter, I'm going to get a very long list of all the available services inside my application. As you can see, this is extremely long. So I'm not even going to try to go to the top. Actually, I just tried and I failed and I succeeded actually. So what we're going to do actually is we're just going to go ahead and try to create our own service. Now, why would you try to even create a service? How is that even helpful? Now, as you're going to see in this case, this is a really simple example that just creates a post and uploads an image. And as you're going to see, it gets pretty messy. For example, we are not checking if the user already has an image.
We are not trying to remove the old image, for example, from this to save some space on the server. We are just uploading the actual image. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to refactor this, and we're going to try to put everything into a service. As I said, don't let this service concept confuse you. It's just a class. As you're going to see, we're going to create a folder. I'm going to call it service because that's what it's going to do, what it's going to contain. And I'm going to go ahead and create a file, and I'm going to call this file uploader. So in my case, I just created a service that is going to be called file uploader. And this file uploader is basically just going to install, upload some files for me. Now I'm going to give it a namespace. It's going to be app services, and the class is just going to be file uploader. Now it's not going to extend anything. As I said, is just a very basic, simple class that you can use. What we're going to do is we're going to create, we're going to make a function, create function. We're going to call it upload file. And this upload file is going to get rid of all the junk that we have right here. It's just going to give me a file name that I'm going to set right here, and I'm going to be done. I'm going to gain some, lines, like 3 lines or something. So upload file needs to have a file that we're going to upload. So the first, let's just take these lines that we're trying to get rid of, and let's go ahead and paste them right here. As you can see, we have some errors. Everything is red. The first thing we need to do to pass to this file upload file is the file that we are actually trying to upload, and that is going to be of type uploaded file. So we're going to call this file, which is going to get rid of the 2 red lines that we have right here. The second thing that you're going to notice is we have this get parameter, which is not defined in this class. So what we're going to do is we need to inject something in our controller in this class. And the way to do that is by using a construct controller. And what we're going to need to pass there is probably the container. Sorry for the weird cut. As I said, we need the container right here. So what we're going to do is this get parameter is getting this from the container. So what we're going to do is, and this is something that a lot of people are probably going to be hating me for, but I'm going to include the container interface right here. So I'm going to do container, and I'm going to initialize this field because I'm using PHP Storm. It's going to initialize this for me. Now I can just access the container by doing this container and get, actually, you know what? It's not the container that I was. All right, it seems like it's the correct one. So I'm going to do container interface. And I'm going to do container get parameter. So I'm going to do container. And I'm not really sure if this is going to work, but I'm going to see in a second if this is the correct interface, the correct container that I injected right here. As I said, please don't hate me for that. Please throw rocks at me. Yeah, we are learning. So we have that. Now what I want to return from this is the file name that I just generated right here, because I'm going to be reusing it to save it to the database. So what I'm going to do, we're going to do return the file name like that. Now we can go to our post controller, and we need the file name. Now how do we get access to that function that we just created? We have 2 things. First, you can use dependency injection, auto wiring, of course. Now auto wiring is just something you're going to notice. I just created this class, and Symfony is going to know how to instantiate it. I included the container interface in it, and it's going to know that it's going to need that, and it's going to provide that for it. Let me show you that in action. It's pretty amazing. Let's do file uploader like that. Let's give it a name, file uploader, and let's use it. We're just gonna do file uploader like that, and we're gonna upload the file. Now, which file do we want to upload is the one that we have right here. Let's pass that. And as I said, this upload file function is going to return a file name, so we can just reuse that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to save that somewhere. So I'm going to do file name like that. And as you can see, we have refactored everything and we have less lines. Now, let's go ahead and see if this is going to actually work, or is it just a mess. I'm going to try to create a new post. I'm going to give it post with service, and I'm going to give it an attachment. And this image is probably too big. I'm not really sure if it's going to work. and actually it did work. So let's go to post with service. As you can see, I get the same result but using a service. Now, as I said, Symfony is going to know that my service exists, and it's going to use that, and it's going to check if this needs anything, and it's going to inject whatever it needs. It's going to provide whatever this service needs to that. That is auto wiring, of course, and auto wiring could be configured inside services.yum. So this file right here is where all the magic happens. As you can see, auto wiring is set to true, and as the comment is self-explanatory, it says it automatically injects dependencies in your services. And the auto configure, it automatically registers your services as commands, event subscribers, etc. Now, I'm probably going to end the video right here, right after I talk about services, but because I feel like all the event stuff and subscribers and all that are kind of advanced stuff, not for beginners, complete beginners, but there's plenty of resources that you can check if you want to get more information about that. Now, one more thing that I want to mention about this is if you don't have auto wiring set to true or false, you're going to have to explicitly configure your services. Now, at this point, you are just you're going to be good if you just set auto wiring to true. I've been using it and it's amazing. There's no problems with that. But sometimes you're going to need to pass some custom stuff to your services. For example, let's say that we have an email. Let's say that we have a service that sends an email, and we want to pass something to that, an email that is going to be in the environment file to that. How we can do that is pretty simple. All you have to do is come right here. Now, this is in the case if we have auto wiring set to false. It's not the case anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to do app services and file uploader, and we're going to give it, so it can be either this is, so in our case, the name, so let me just show you that before I move on. In our case, if I go back to the container and I try to debug, so one thing that you can do is you can just include some word. It's going to be filtering all these based on that word. In our case, we have file uploader, so if I do that, so if I do even file up, it's going to give me the service that I have. It's going to tell me that the service ID is the same as the class. That's because I didn't provide anything. And the class is this one, and it's going to tell you if it's public, if it's shared and auto-wired and all that. So auto-wired is set to yes. That's why Symfony knows how to use it. Let me go back to my service and try to explicitly use my, my service, so I can give it a name. So a service ID, I can give it something custom. A service ID like this, I can change this one. I want, for example, that to be custom file uploader. Now what I need to do, I need to give it a class. So the class would be app services, and it's going to be the file uploader. Did I even call it file uploader? I'm not sure. So file, yeah, it's file uploader. That is working. That is fine. And the second thing, so this is a class. Obviously, if I go ahead and try to, search for file upload, I'm gonna get. Okay, it seems like it's not registering this stuff. I was actually expecting to get the. So let me just see if I can search for custom file upload. And yes, indeed, I have that. So I have the custom file uploader that I just created. It doesn't matter. So I have access to that, and I can even set auto-wiring to false if I want to. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just trying to show you something. But if I want to pass some parameters to or arguments to my function, what I have to do to my service, what I have to do is I have to call arguments like that, and I need to pass whatever functions, whatever I need. For example, if you want to pass just a regular string that is going to be taken in the service, you know what? Let's go ahead and create a new service and demonstrate all this stuff. Let's not waste any time. It's called send notification.php. Let's create a PHP class. Let's give it a namespace. It's going to be app services, and the class is going to be obviously notification or whatever I call this. And let's create a new public function, and I'm going to call this send notification. notification. So I'm not really sure how you need to do this. Doesn't matter. I'm going to do it anyways. Now we're going to create a controller. So another controller, a constructor. So let's do public function construct. And as I said, I want to pass the email that is going to be used right here. So I can do that. So yeah, let's just call it an email. So I can do that email like that. And let's initialize this value right here. And actually, we don't even need to do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump this email that I have, and I'm just going to dive right away. So how do we pass the email to this? As I said, this is how we can actually do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do app services. As I said, you can either create a custom name or you can just pass the class directly right here and it's going to know about it. So notification. And we're going to pass some arguments. So let's do arguments like that. It's been a really long time since I ever configured something like this. So we're going to go ahead and do it. So let's do email at admin.com, something like that. And let's go ahead and see. So we need to call that somewhere. So I'm just going to call it in my post controller. I'm just going to do notification and notification. That. Let's go ahead and refresh this page and see what we're going to get. We got nothing. Is that even the correct one? No, that's create. I need to go to create. And as you can see, I successfully passed that value. Now, a couple of more things. Let's say that you don't want to hard code this each time. One thing you can do is you can create a parameter called, for example, the email. So admin email, and you can have like admin at admin.com or whatever I put down here. So it's email admin, doesn't matter. If you want to use this parameter right here by the value, by the key, what you can do is you can use the percent symbol, and you can do email or whatever that I call it, admin email. So admin email. So if I do that, I'm going to get the same thing. Okay, I didn't get the same thing. All right, so I'm checking the documentation. It seems like I don't even need to. So let me just, you know what? I think I need the name. Do I even need the name? I'm kind of forgetting about everything. Symfony is so big that I do not even remember everything about it, unless you are working at Symfony itself. So let's go ahead and see if that is going to solve anything. Yeah, that's what I need to do. I need to fix that thing that I have right there. Now, this is how you can pass like a string. So I can even have like a regular string. So I showed you both ways. Now, let's say that I want to pass some arguments, some other service that this is going to be dependent on. So let's say that I need the file uploader. So let's do file uploader like that. And file uploader, I think I need, no, I don't need that. Let's go ahead and see what we're going to get in this file uploader. So file uploader, and we're going to refresh this page. And as you can see, it does know that I want my file upload. It's going to know that because I set auto write into true. And all I need to set right here is in my services.yaml is the email. So that's pretty much it. That's what I believe is the beginner's guide into Symfony 4. That's what I think you need to get started. Now, there's a lot and plenty of other stuff that you need to be looking at, for example, events, and you need to learn and master how you can create services and all that. We have listeners, we have some Doctrine, we have some custom types that you can create, we have custom annotations. There's plenty of stuff that you can do, but that's gonna be it for this. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me or leave them down below, and I'll do my best to aid whoever needs the help with this. So thank you guys for watching. I'll leave you to learn Symfony at your own.